You cannot do that. Lavinia yelled, her face burning with anger as she glared at the man standing before her. Her fiancé, Grand Duke Osric Valerius Everhart. You have to love me. You cannot just abandon me too. Can't you just give me another chance? Can't you look at me the way you look at her, with love and affection? I am the one who entered your life first, Osric. You belong to me. Only me. Lavinia was begging Grand Duke Osric not to break their engagement. Begging him to love her. But Osric didn't even spare her a glance. I loved you with all my heart, Osric. Lavinia's voice trembled, tears threatening to spill. How can you love that bitch when I am still your fiancé? Whispers filled the palace garden. The maids, the nobles, everyone watched in silence, gossiping among themselves. But Lavinia didn't care. She only cared about him. She stepped forward, desperate, reaching for his hand. But the moment her fingers brushed his skin, Osric recoiled. His cold, piercing brown eyes filled with nothing but disgust. But Lavinia didn't stop. I will be obedient, Osric. I will be the proper Grand Duchess you always wanted. Please just give me another chance. I promise I won't do anything bad. I promise. Osric, I promise. Her voice broke as tears fell freely. Her knees gave out beneath her and she collapsed onto the cold marble ground. Please. You're the only one I have left. My father has abandoned me. I have no one else. Please don't abandon me too, Osric. But Grand Duke Osric never looked back at her. My engagement was set with the princess of the Illyrian Empire. You are no longer the princess, Lavinia. His voice was cold, absolute. So naturally our engagement ends here. And with that he walked away. No, you cannot, Osric. Lavinia's tear-filled blue eyes reflected only pain as she watched the man she loved disappear from her life forever. Wow. That was insane. How could she beg for love when the man wouldn't even look at her? Does she have no self-respect? And why the hell do I remember the last second chapter of this cheesy web novel so clearly? Since I woke up in this world, Lavinia's memories keep popping up in my head. Can't I at least sleep in peace? Wait, something feels weird. Why do I feel wet? Oh no. Did I just... Wah. Ugh. Not again. Did you poop again? A voice groaned, filled with irritation. A face loomed over me, one of the maids assigned to me. She looked completely pissed as she grabbed me with rough hands. I can't believe I have to keep changing your diaper. How can you be so clumsy? She grumbled, yanking the soiled fabric away. Excuse me, I'm a freaking baby. If I could wipe my own, but do you think I'd let you do something this embarrassing? The maid let out an exasperated sigh. It's done. Now don't wet the diaper again. She sounded like she was talking to some annoying stray dog, not the only princess of the Illyrian Empire. I should say something. I should stand up for myself. I wish I could. But I'm also too lazy. Instead, I focus on something more important. Food. Before she leaves, I need to make sure I get fed or I'll be stuck starving again. Wah. What now? The maid's irritated voice snapped. Lady, what do you think? I'm hungry, give me food. Wah. Another maid, an older woman sweeping the floor, glanced over. She must be hungry. Feed her some milk. Sigh. Seriously. Since she was born, she's been drinking the whole palace's milk. I blinked. Excuse me? Is that my fault? And I am the princess of this palace, you lady. I have all the rights to drink the milk. I let out another dramatic wail just to piss them off. Wah. The maid let out a frustrated sigh and shoved the bottle into my mouth. Here, Tao, keep quiet. That's what you should do, lady. Feed me and clean me. That's your job. I latched onto the bottle, feeling the warm milk slide down my throat. My tiny body relaxed instantly. The milk was tasty. Rich, creamy, and just the perfect temperature. This is fun. I have to do nothing, just drink the milk, let them clean me, and occasionally scream when I want attention. Except for the part where someone else has to clean my butt, everything is perfect. No expectations. No responsibilities. Just me, my milk, and my dramatic cries. But then, my past life as Reina Suzuki. A nightmare. A nightmare of studying tirelessly for exams, then working tirelessly as an office worker. Spreadsheets. Endless deadlines. Useless meetings. Managing interns. dealing with incompetent bosses. And worst of all, vending machine coffee. Not even a proper coffee. I hated it. All of it. I worked like a corporate slave buried under a mountain of reports. And what did I get in the end? Nothing. No big achievements. No praise. Just more work. I even forgot whether I was a human or a robot when I finally collapsed at my desk. Dead from overworking. What a pathetic way to go. Now I'm here. A baby princess. No work. No deadlines. Just milk and naps. Yes. This is the life. When I died, I never thought I would wake up as a princess. I was an orphan. The orphanage lady said I was left by my mother in a hospital after she delivered me. How could they say she left? She ran away, bro. The hospital staff sent me to an orphanage where I grew up. I was adopted, abandoned, adopted, and abandoned. The cycle kept repeating until I was 14. After 14, I somehow ran away from the orphanage because I was not ready to be adopted and abandoned again. So, I washed dishes at restaurants and worked part-time at stores just to pay my school fees. Some days there was money left to buy food and some days there was nothing. No gentleman offered me food and I had no friends who would share their lunch with me. To gain a scholarship, I studied tirelessly and ended up doing a tireless job, and died. And now I am a princess. I didn't realize it at first. How could I, right? I was a baby who had just opened my eyes. I was definitely in shock until I realized I had to do nothing, just lay there. But I always wondered why my parents never came to see me. Then one day I heard two maids talking about me right in front of me. According to them, my mother was a maid who slept with my father while he was drunk. She eventually got pregnant, but after I was born she died due to premature delivery. That's right, I am a weak baby. Forget that. The important thing is I am no ordinary baby. I am the princess. The damn princess of the Illyrian Empire. That's when I realized. Shit. I reincarnated as the villainous Lavinia Devereux from the novel Spoiled by Grand Duke. It was a cheesy novel where a village girl falls in love with a Grand Duke. She chased him, not realizing he was a Grand Duke, and when she did, the Grand Duke had already fallen in love with her. The cold, ruthless Grand Duke pampered the girl and showered her with love, forgetting that he had a fiancée waiting for him. And that fiancée was me, Lavinia Devereux. As usual, like all the other novels, Lavinia was jealous, so she did everything to humiliate and torture the female lead. Splashed drink on her. Humiliated her for being a village girl. Blaming her for stealing her royal jewelry. And so on. In the end, because of her schemes, the people of her own kingdom started hating her, and she was banished from the royal family by her own father, who never cared about her too. So how did she die? She was poisoned by the second male lead of the novel, who was her personal knight. Say, what a funny way to die. Anyway, that's how the story should run. So now what should I do? Change my damn fate? Be a good princess for this kingdom and chase the second male lead? Or prove my worth as a princess to my father? Get his attention? Nay, I'm not going to do anything. I will let the story flow. Why? Because in the end we all have to die. So instead of dying by some painful death, it's better to swallow poison and die. And also because I am too tired. I don't want to do anything. I am too lazy. I have no energy to fight. So my life goal is one. Not doing anything. I cracked my eyes open. Maybe it was the middle of the night? The room was dark, eerily quiet, and most importantly, empty. Seriously? They left a baby alone in a room? What kind of childcare system does this palace have? Looks like I'll have to teach them some basic baby care etiquette. But first, food. I smacked my tiny hands against the crib railing. Okay. Nothing. Well, they really just left me here, huh? Not even a maid to check if I'm still breathing? I bet if I suddenly died, they'd just find me in the morning, shrug and move on with their lives. And then, looks like someone's here. About time. Should I make a dramatic sound to let them know I'm awake and in desperate need of nourishment? Before I could decide, footsteps echoed across the room. But, hold on. These weren't the usual maid footsteps. Maid footsteps are light and rushed. Like someone who doesn't want to be here but has no choice. But these footsteps. Steady. Heavy. Purposeful. A man's boots stopped right in front of my crib. Wait. What? I looked up. A shadow loomed over me. And then, bam, a face popped into view. Intruder. Intruder. Alert. Where is the palace security? Aren't I supposed to be an imperial princess? Shouldn't there be guards outside my room, protecting my oh-so-important existence? I flailed my tiny arms dramatically as if that would help. The man, unfazed by my award-winning performance, just stared at me with piercing red eyes and golden hair, his expression colder than my baby food at this rate. Are you the one? His deep, chilling voice filled the room. The one? The one what? The one who's hungry? The one who is seriously questioning the security of this palace? Wait a second. Whoever this man was, he was stupidly handsome. Like unfairly handsome. The kind of handsome that should come with a warning label. The kind of handsome that would make romance novel heroines faint on sight. Wait. What am I even doing? He's still an intruder. I gulped, or at least I would have if my baby reflexes allowed it. Instead, all I managed was a very unimpressive gag goo. Translation: What the hell do you want from me, Mr. Intruder? The man said nothing. He just continued staring at me with his cold, unreadable expression. And then, without a single word, he turned around and walked away. What? Excuse me? Excuse me. You barge into my room in the middle of the night, stare at me like some creepy villain, and then just leave. That's it. I lay there in my crib, staring at the ceiling, completely dumbfounded. For some reason I felt offended. Growl. Right. I'm still hungry. Great. Who's gonna feed me now? I had no choice. It was time for my ultimate weapon. Wah. 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 Translation: Someone feed me or I will scream until the sun rises. It was the next morning. I wailed. I howled. I put every ounce of my abandoned, starving, reincarnated soul into that cry. And guess what? Nothing. No footsteps. No rushed maids. No sleepy-eyed nurse hurrying in to quiet the royal baby. Not even a damn rat scurrying across the floor in sympathy. Are you kidding me? They left me alone. Starving. For the second freaking time. The sun eventually rose, its blinding light pouring through the still open windows. Open windows. With a baby in the room. I should file a complaint. Oh wait, I can't. Now not only was I hungry but I was cold too. My tiny baby limbs trembled as a cool morning breeze swept in, mocking my suffering. Goo-thay. Translation: Life is pain. I lay there, dramatically squinting at the ceiling, contemplating my miserable existence. I mean, do they not have hearts? I am a baby, bro. Like the squishy, helpless kind. The kind you're supposed to pamper and dote on. Not abandon like some old laundry. What did I ever do to deserve this? Exist? Breathe? Be born into a trash royal family that doesn't care? And to think I reincarnated for this. I sighed. But what's the point? I was just a tiny, powerless baby. My own father didn't even acknowledge me. He probably didn't even remember I existed. So what should I expect from the maids? Care. A warm bottle of milk at the very least? Dream on, Lavinia. I curled up, glaring at the morning light as my stomach grumbled in protest. Today's goal: survive. Somehow. The hunger was unbearable. At first it was just an ache, a sharp twisting sensation in my tiny belly. But now it was something else entirely. It had drained me, emptied me. I wasn't even wailing anymore. What was the point? No one was coming. No one cared. I just lay there staring blankly at the ceiling, my little fingers twitching weakly. My breath felt shallow. My body, so small, so helpless, was losing its strength. I could hear voices outside. Hurried footsteps. People are rushing about. But not a single person opened the door. Not one. Did they not hear me? Did they not wonder if the royal baby was still alive? Maybe they knew. Maybe they just didn't care. Is this how the real Lavinia was treated? An afterthought? A mistake? A person who didn't exist? I never really thought about it before. In the novel, Lavinia was always just the villainess. The cruel, arrogant princess who schemed and tormented the heroine. But now, I understand. She wasn't born a monster. She was made into one. I could almost see her, alone in this grand palace, ignored by her own father, cast aside by the very people meant to raise her. No love. No warmth. Just emptiness. Just like this. My eyelids were getting heavy. Felt so tired. So unbearably tired. Maybe this is it. Maybe my second life is going to end right here. Starved to death in a crib. How pathetic. I let my eyes close, surrendering to the blackness swallowing me whole. But just before everything faded, I heard it. A voice. A man's voice. Deep, steady. It's okay. I'll protect you. Who? I didn't see him. Didn't feel him near. but for some reason it was warm. Maybe finally I am in heaven. I didn't even know if I had just imagined it. Some desperate dream, some cruel trick of my dying mind. But whatever it was the last thing I heard before everything went completely, utterly dark. I felt weak. My whole body ached. Everything around me was blank, swallowed by a cold, endless darkness. Was this death? Was I in heaven? It felt kind of underwhelming, honestly. But then, why isn't she waking up? Who's that? That voice was cold. Ruthless. Like it could freeze an entire ocean just by speaking. I don't know, Your Majesty. The princess should have woken up by now. But, Your Majesty? Who's he talking to? And why does he sound scared? Wait, hold on. Shouldn't I be in heaven right now? Shouldn't there be angels floating around, humming in the background? Maybe a soft golden glow? A harp. Instead, I'm hearing a voice that sounds like it belongs to the final boss of a villain arc. My eyes fluttered open. I blinked at the ceiling, except this wasn't the ceiling I knew. Before, the room I stayed in was cold, empty and dull. This one was ornate with gold-trimmed carvings of angels, flowers, and hold on, is that a dragon? Where am I? I moved slightly and realized something else. I wasn't in my crib. I was on a bed. A huge bed. No, not just huge, ridiculously, obnoxiously, unnecessarily huge. Like, I'm pretty sure 10 babies like me could fit here and still have enough room to throw a party. That's it. I'm officially confused. What? Translation: What's happening? Let's analyze the situation. Point 1. I am still a baby. Point 2. I am very much alive. Point 3. Where the hell Before I could fully process my miraculous survival, a familiar figure popped up in front of me. I gasped. I blinked. Red eyes. Golden hair. Cold expression. It's Mr. Intruder. Just like last time, he surprised me again. Gaga. Translation: Hello, Mr. Intruder. We meet again. Like before, he said nothing. Just stared. Of course, he wouldn't understand baby language. But honestly, seeing a familiar face, even if he was an intruder, was a tiny relief. Even if that familiar face looked like he could execute someone without blinking. Then, in a tone so calm it could freeze a volcano, he spoke. Look into her. Wait, look into what? The man beside him, who was dressed like some kind of priest, nodded and moved toward me. What? Wait. Excuse me. Personal space. Hello. The priest carefully examined me, his fingers glowing slightly as he checked something. Then, after a moment, he turned back to Mr. Intruder. She is in good condition, Your Majesty. I paused. I processed. I blinked. Wait. Did he just call Mr. Intruder Your Majesty? No way. This man, Mr. Intruder, is the freaking emperor of this kingdom. My father. Emperor Cassius Devereaux? I stared at him. He stared back. I stared harder. He stared harder. Well, at least I'm alive. Then, in a move that sent shivers down my tiny spine, he sat beside me. Clearly uncomfortable. Same buddy. Same. Both of us avoided eye contact like two people who accidentally made eye contact in public and now refused to acknowledge it ever happened. The room was silent for minutes. It was so awkward that even the priest, whose head was still bowed, seemed to be sweating while waiting for Mr. Intruder, my intruder father, to give him permission to leave. Then, after what felt like an eternity, His Majesty Emperor Scary Eyes finally spoke. Make sure they all get executed. What? Executed? Who? Before I could process that potential mass murder announcement, another voice answered, Yes, Your Majesty. There's someone else in this room other than the priest. But before I could spot them, I heard footsteps. Distant. Fading. Someone just left. But who got the death sentence? I was so focused on those distant footsteps that I almost forgot the even bigger crisis happening in my life. I felt a powerful, terrifying hand grabbing me. Wrongly. As in very wrongly. Like I was some scroll or a sack of flour. Wait. What are you doing? Oh, sir, I am a baby. I was dangling in the air, my little feet kicking uselessly while His Majesty looked at me like he had just picked up a foreign object and had no idea what to do with it. Panic. I am panicking. Before I could scream, the priest suddenly stepped forward in alarm. Why, Your Majesty? He practically squeaked in horror. Please don't hold the princess like that. The emperor blinked. The priest looked like he was watching a national disaster unfold. Your Majesty, with all due respect, the priest continued, his voice now frantic, that is not how you hold a baby. The emperor frowned. Then how should I hold her? The priest sprinted forward like his life depended on it. Which, considering how fast people were getting executed today, maybe it did. Lesson 1. How to hold a baby without committing a crime. A tutorial by the extremely stressed out priest. Step 1. Support the head, Your Majesty. The priest carefully guided the emperor's hands, making sure my very fragile baby neck wasn't left to gravity's mercy. Step 2. Hold her against your chest. Not like you're about to throw her across the room, please. Step 3. Relax. You have to relax yourself, Your Majesty. Step 4. There. That's much better. Finally, after a long, stressful minute, the emperor was holding me correctly. There was silence. Then, at the exact same time, both the priest and I let out a huge sigh of relief. Crisis averted. For a moment, I just lay there in the emperor's arms, recovering from my near-death experience. Honestly, I thought I was going to die again by dangling in the air like a lost sock. But now I felt warm. Not just any kind of warmth. A comforting, protective warmth. Something I had never felt in either of my lives. This was nice. And then, just as I was starting to appreciate this moment, what should I do now? His voice was still cold as ice. The priest, who had not recovered from the last catastrophe, hesitated before saying carefully, Why, Your Majesty? The princess needs to be fed. The emperor raised an eyebrow. Fed? Yes, Your Majesty. She's still weak. If she doesn't eat properly, it will be easy for her to fall sick. Pause. And then, is that why she is this ugly? Excuse me. I froze. Offended. Absolutely offended. How dare you, Emperor, Mr. Intruder? I am a baby. I am supposed to be small and wrinkly. Do you think I was born as a glamorous noble lady? Outrageous. I immediately started wiggling furiously in his arms, protesting this slander. Of course, all my dramatic rage only resulted in tiny little kicks, weak little wiggles, and then I was too tired. I gave up after 5 seconds. I sulked. The priest, wisely ignoring my baby tantrum, cleared his throat. Your Majesty, please take a seat. I will bring the bottle. The emperor sat down on a luxurious chair, still holding me like I was some kind of puzzle he hadn't solved yet. Moments later, the priest handed him a baby bottle filled with warm milk. The emperor examined it, like it was some new weapon. The priest, who was clearly about to have a mental breakdown, carefully guided him again. You just need to hold it near her mouth, Your Majesty. The emperor narrowed his eyes at the bottle. Then finally he brought it close to me. Well, fine. Since I am apparently ugly and on the verge of starvation, I snatched the bottle like a tiny gremlin and started sucking the milk. Aggressively. Out of spite. I drank the milk in rage. Fueled by my offended soul. And the emperor just stared at me. Silently. Watching. Like he was trying to figure out why I existed. It was kinda awkward. But the warmth of the milk and the rhythmic sucking motions slowly made me relax. Stuff it. Fine. Maybe I'll stop being mad for now. Maybe okay? And as I was still sucking silently on the bottle, emperor gaze never left me. It was so intense I felt like I was being investigated for tax fraud. And then he spoke. Are babies always this silent? What kind of question is that? I tilted towards priest, wondering what he will say. The priest was still standing nervously nearby, quickly replied, No, Your Majesty. Babies usually cry. The emperor frowned. Really? That's right, Your Majesty, it's their way of talking. Babies cry to express emotions or call for attention. Pause. And then, but she doesn't cry. The priest froze. The room went quiet. Even I stopped sucking for a second. Oh no. This was getting philosophical. After a long moment, the priest carefully said, Perhaps, the princess is special, Your Majesty. The emperor went silent. I too went silent. We both just stared at each other. I agree with him. I'm special. And proudly I went back to drinking my milk. Eventually I finished fast because I was damn hungry. I throwed the bottle and the emperor blinked at the empty bottle. She finished. The priest cleared his throat. Your Majesty, now you must help her burp. Burp. Yes, Your Majesty. You must pat her back gently to help release the air. The emperor looked at me. Then at the priest. Then back at me. Like I was some kind of bomb that might explode. After several seconds of hesitation, he awkwardly positioned me on his shoulder, as if I were a dangerous artifact. And then he patted my back. Horribly. I mean, it was stiff and awkward. The priest, clearly holding back tears, said, Your Majesty. Gently. The emperor scowled. This is gentle. I disagreed. And so did my tiny lungs. The priest almost begged in saying, You have to be more gentle, Your Majesty. After a few more terrible pats, something magical happened. I let out the most majestic burp of my tiny baby life. Silence. The emperor stared. The priest stared. I stared. Then, at the exact same time, both the priest and I let out a huge sigh of relief. Crisis averted. Now that my stomach was full and my body felt warm, I started feeling drowsy. My tiny eyelids grew heavier and heavier. My little body relaxed against the warmth holding me. And just like that, I fell asleep in the emperor's arms. Comfortably. Feeling a little safe. There wasn't much written about Emperor Cassius Devereux in the novel. He only came into the light when the female lead was learning about the history of the Illyrian Empire. According to the novel, Emperor Cassius was a tyrant. He killed his own father. Slaughtered his mother. Erased his brothers, sisters, cousins. Basically, he wiped out his whole family and snatched the throne. A total tyrant. He didn't hesitate to swing his sword and kill someone. Whether it was in the royal meeting hall or a sacred church. If he found you offensive, you were as good as dead. So naturally people feared him. Even those who worked in the royal palace. But it was also said that, despite his bloodthirsty nature, he ruled the empire remarkably well. But there was one thing he always hated, yet never swung his sword at. Lavinia. Not because she was his flesh and blood. Not because he felt any fatherly attachment. But because, dirtying my sword with her blood will leave a stain. That's what he said when he saw Lavinia for the first time when she was 14. Before that, he didn't look at her. He didn't even know she existed. So, how come now, in his grand royal office behind an ornate gold-trimmed desk signing one document after another, I was nestled in his lap, nibbling on a golden milk bottle? Shouldn't he be ignoring me? What kind of alternate universe was this? I was supposed to be the hated villainess. The ignored princess. The one whose presence he despised. And yet here I was, in the lap of the emperor tyrant himself, drinking milk like a lazy baby. This was not in the script. At all. Then a voice suddenly broke the silence. Your Majesty, perhaps you should lay the princess in her crib? It would be more comfortable for her to drink the milk. The speaker was a man standing nearby, tall, well-dressed and looking extremely capable. This was Theon Alderic, the emperor's personal assistant. Cassius glanced down at me, his crimson eyes studying my face for a few seconds before he spoke. Are you uncomfortable? I froze mid-sip. Did he just ask me a question? I mean, sure, I could answer. But unless he understood fluent baby gibberish, that wouldn't be very helpful. And then, Your Majesty. Theon suddenly yelled. She is a baby. How can she reply to you? My eyes widened in absolute horror. I nearly choked on my milk. This man just yelled at Cassius Devereux. At the bloodthirsty emperor. Did he have a death wish? I clutched my golden milk bottle like a lifeline, waiting for the inevitable. Any second now the emperor would pull out his sword and... But he didn't. Instead, his red eyes narrowed. Lower your voice. You scared her. Huh. Is he not going to kill him? Theon just yelled at him. Yelled. At the emperor. I eyed Cassius, waiting for him to suddenly unsheath his sword and slice Theon in half. But nope. The tyrant just sat there looking mildly annoyed. I mean, come on, just wipe him up. But nothing happened. Instead, Theon just crossed his arms and pouted. It's you who made me yell in front of our precious princess. Precious. What now? Before I could even process that absurd statement, Theon's eyes turned toward me, brimming with pure admiration, sparkling like he had just witnessed the arrival of a divine being. I had never felt so violently stabbed by someone's enthusiasm before. Just look at her. She's just so tiny and cute. Thean gushed, clasping his hands together. Princess, do you know how adorable you are? Cassius shot Thean a glare. Stop gawking at her. Thean gasped dramatically, placing a hand over his chest. Your Majesty, how could you say such cruel words? Have you no heart? Cassius ignored him. I, on the other hand, continued sucking on my bottle with an air of superiority. Of course I knew I was cute. Adorable. Beautiful. A work of art, really. Thean's reaction was only natural. But then, she doesn't like you, Cassius stated flatly. I paused. Wait. I didn't say that. Thean looked utterly devastated. What? How do you know? Cassius didn't reply. He simply stared at Thean with the usual cold indifference, as if Thean wasn't even worth answering. And then Thean looked at me like I broke his precious heart. Bro, I really don't care. Ignoring their ridiculous bickering, I sucked harder on my bottle and snuggled deeper into Cassius's lap. At this point I should really stop questioning my life choices. I had milk. I had warmth. I wasn't starving. Life was good. And then, knock, knock. A knock at the door. It must be her, Thean murmured. Cassius nodded, his expression unreadable. Come in, Thean said. I perked up, momentarily distracted from my golden milk bottle. Who could it be? The heavy doors creaked open, revealing a maid clad in a plain, modest dress. Her figure was thin, almost frail, and her dull brown hair was pulled back in a tight, severe bun. She bowed deeply, keeping her head low, and greeted Cassius in a quiet, hoarse voice. Your Majesty. I squinted at her. She looked tired. No, more than tired. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in years. Someone who had seen too much, lost too much, and yet still carried on because life refused to let her go. Her hands were clasped in front of her, knuckles slightly white, but her posture was unwavering. Cassius studied her. His crimson eyes were as sharp as ever, analyzing, calculating. Then without a word he reached down and pulled the milk bottle from my mouth. Excuse me. I wiggled immediately, reaching out for my precious milk. No, I wasn't done. Give it back. You've had enough, Cassius said, his voice as cold and unmoved as ever. I shot him a betrayed look, my tiny fingers grasping at the air in protest. But he didn't waver. Rude. Huffing, I flopped against his chest in dramatic defeat. Fine. I was full anyway. He, of course, completely ignored my suffering. And that was when it happened. The maid lifted her head just slightly and her eyes finally landed on me. Something shifted. Her dull, lifeless eyes softened, melting into something warm. Something heartbreakingly tender. The kind of gaze that a mother had when looking at her child. I blinked. She didn't look at Cassius. She didn't look at Thean. She only looked at me. Cassius, still holding me securely in his arms, stood up and took a step closer to the maid. I have heard everything about you, he said, his deep voice cutting through the silence like a blade. What happened was devastating. But no one could do anything to stop it. Devastating? What happened? What was he talking about? I looked between them, thoroughly confused, but neither of them seemed to notice my growing curiosity. Cassius exhaled lightly and continued, I can't bring back what you lost. But he took another step forward. I want you to be my daughter's nanny. The maid's breath hitched. Her entire body went still. Cassius didn't falter. She doesn't have a mother. And I've heard that babies need motherly care. I want you to take care of her. I want you to give her everything you have left to give. Will you do that? The maid's lips trembled. Her gaze flickered to Cassius, then back to me. Tears pooled in her exhausted eyes, her throat working to form words that wouldn't come out. For a long moment, there was only silence, heavy with emotions I didn't quite understand. Then, in a voice so soft it was almost broken, she whispered, I will. I stared at her wide-eyed. I didn't know what had happened to her. I didn't know what kind of pain she carried. But I could feel it. It was in her voice. In her trembling hands. And yet, when she looked at me, there was no sadness. Only love. A love that wasn't mine. But maybe, just maybe, it could be. I was lying in my crib staring at the ceiling. Not because it was interesting. It wasn't. But moving? That required effort. And effort was not my thing. Then a face suddenly popped into view. Oh. She woke up. The maid announced dramatically, turning to the side as if this was breaking news. She was Mary L., My other maid who was personally assigned by my great father. Then another face appeared, one I liked much better. Good morning, princess. Nanny Narina greeted me with the biggest, warmest smile. I grinned back. Nanny Narina was nice. He smelled nice too. And she was very, very warm. I love her so much. Her hands gently scooped me up, holding me with the ease of someone who had done this 1,000 times. Then to my horror she made that face. The checking face. Before I could protest she was already patting my butt. Oh no. Not this again. I huffed, turning my head away dramatically. This was humiliating. You're dry, she murmured, sounding relieved. That's a good girl. Well, of course I was. I had standards. It had been 2 weeks and so many things had changed. Now I had maids. Lots of maids. And guards too. My room was huge, big and fancy, filled with fluffy pillows, soft blankets and more toys than I could ever bother with. Not that I played with them much. But they were nice to look at. I yawned, snuggling deeper into Nanny Narina's warmth as she carried me. He felt different lately. Not sad anymore. Not dull anymore. 2 weeks ago her smiles weren't as bright. But now she shined. There was still a little sadness in her eyes, but when she looked at me, it was filled with something warmer. Love. And I liked that. I wished I could erase all of Nanny Narina's bad memories. A week ago I overheard the other maids talking with Marielle. According to them, Nanny Narina's house had caught fire. Inside that house her 8-month-old baby had been sleeping. When her husband heard their home was burning and their child was trapped inside, he ran in to save them. But for some reason he got trapped too. And just like that, Nanny Narina lost both her child and her husband. She suffered a lot after that. So much that she even tried to take her own life. But somehow she was saved. And that's when she met me. Maybe she saw her lost child in me. Fate had been so cruel to her. I don't know why Cassius chose her to be my nanny, but he did a good job. Nanny was wiping me and I felt so relaxed. So warm. So comfortable. Like I was in a fancy spa, getting the best treatment in the world. If I could purr like a cat I would. Nanny smiled down at me. Do you like it, my princess? Niang, I said smoothly, feeling relaxed. And Marielle chuckled. She's enjoying it. Of course I am. This is heaven. I could live like this forever. Then Marielle suddenly asked, is it today? I blinked. Nanny paused and looked up. What? Marielle leaned in slightly. Are they going to be executed today? What? Who? Who's going to get executed? Wait. I do remember something. Cassius ordered someone to be executed. Nanny Narina nodded calmly. That's right. Marielle huffed, crossing her arms. They deserved it. What did they think? That they could treat our princess like nothing and just walk away? What? Me. Is someone getting executed because of me? What? I don't remember. Who is getting executed? I need to know what's happening. Desperately. Someone explain. Before I could start wiggling in frustration, Nanny Narina sighed. Marielle, keep your emotions in check, she said gently. Babies may not understand our words, but they can read our expressions. Marielle gasped, looking at me. I stared back at her wide-eyed. She pressed her lips together and nodded. Sorry, she whispered. That's right. Apologize. I don't know what's happening and now I'm stressed. I may be a baby but I demand answers. The sky was beautiful. The garden was beautiful. Flowers in all colors, fountains spraying water in the air like sparkling diamonds. But I couldn't enjoy any of it. I was stressed. Someone was getting executed because of me and I didn't even know W.O. I kicked my legs in frustration. Nyang, nyanana. Translation, I demand answers. Nanny Narina and Marielle immediately looked at me. I think Princess is upset about something, Marielle said, concerned. Nanny lifted me up and patted my back, rocking me gently. Oh my, is my princess upset? Was the milk today not good? She placed a hand on my forehead, checking my temperature. She seems fine too. I wish I could say that the milk was fine. The problem is that someone is about to lose their head because of me and I don't even know who. I let out a dramatic baby sigh, resting my head against Nanny Narina's shoulder. My tiny fingers gripped her dress as I wallowed in my baby-sized crisis. Then I noticed something. Eyes. Lots of them. Peeking from behind bushes. From the garden entrance. From behind pillars and flower pots. Maids. workers, guards, all sneaking glances at me like I was some rare, sacred treasure that must be admired from a distance. I blinked. One maid gasped. She blinked. Another clutched her heart. So precious. So cute. I can't take it anymore. I frowned. Nyak go. Translation, what the heck is going on? And then, whoosh. Everyone vanished behind their hiding spots, disappearing like rats when the lights turned on. I blinked again. Where did everyone go? Just then Nanny and Morel straightened and bowed deeply. Good morning, Your Majesty the Emperor. It's Cassius. Now I understand why they vanished. I glanced behind him and spotted Theon, who was beaming at me and waving enthusiastically. Hello, Princess. Cassius, however, was looking straight at me, his crimson eyes narrowing. Why does she look upset? Oh well, he guessed it. Nanny quickly replied, We don't know, Your Majesty. Princess seems upset about something. Cassius stared at me for seconds and stretched out his arms. Give her to me. Niang. I flipped my head. Translation. And I clutched Nanny's dress tighter, and the air instantly became thick with tension. Nanny froze. Morel froze. The maids froze. Even the birds in the trees probably froze. The maids, still peeking from behind the bushes, looked ready to run for their lives. Then Cassius' voice dropped to a chilling coldness. Lavinia. Come here. I sighed dramatically. All right, fine. I surrender. I let go of Nanny's dress and plopped into his arms. Well, he's not that warm, but he's still warm. I guess I'm used to it now. Just as I was settling in, Cassius turned to Nanny and said, I'm taking her with me to the execution ground. What? Execution ground? Why? Is he going to execute me or what? Nanny's eyes widened in horror. She immediately bowed, her voice trembling. Your Majesty, with all due respect, taking a baby to the execution ground, that cannot be good. I agree. Theon, who had been happily smiling before, now looked like he had swallowed a fly. Your Majesty, I have to agree. Bringing a baby to a place where heads are literally rolling might not be the best idea. It could cause trauma to our precious princess. Well, technically that can't happen since I'm mentally grown up and strong. But he's not wrong. Cassius didn't even blink. She needs to know who is getting executed and why. I really want to know. I wiggled in his arms. Niang. Gaia. Go. Translation, let's go. I want to see. Nanny's breath hitched. Theon blinked rapidly. Theon's voice stammered. Your Majesty, with all due respect, she is a baby. She doesn't even know what an execution is. Cassius looked down at me. Lavinia. Do you want to go? I beamed and in my cutest baby voice chirped, Naya. Ga. New. Translation, yes, let's go. I want to see. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Nanny's soul left her body. Theon stared at me like I had just declared war. Cassius smirked. See. He glanced at Theon. She wants to go. Theon looked personally offended. That's not what she said. She said, Nyaga, or something. She could have been saying, I want a milk or toy. Cassius shrugged. Don't worry. If she gets even a little afraid, I will take her back. Theon and Nanny exchanged looks of pure absolute horror. Meanwhile, I was just vibing. Let's go. The execution ground was not ready for this. People had come expecting the usual. Criminals dragged in, heads rolling, justice or terror, being served. What they hadn't expected was me. Baby. Sitting snugly in the lap of Emperor Cassius Devereux, the most terrifying man in the empire. Gasps filled the air. Theon, who had been anxiously following behind us with Nanny Narina, looked like he was about to drop dead on the spot. Why, Your Majesty? He stuttered, voice barely holding it together. I still strongly advise against this. Bringing the princess to an execution ground. It will traumatize her. Cassius didn't even glance at him. His crimson eyes remained fixed on me, studying every little movement I made. Meanwhile, I was just looking around curiously, kicking my tiny legs as I took in my surroundings. People. Chains. A big, shiny axe. My round eyes sparkled. Niang ga. What's that? It's so shiny. My eyes landed on a sharp executioner's blade, gleaming under the sunlight. Cassius, who had been observing my every move, raised an eyebrow. Are you interested in sharp objects? I turned my head up to him and blinked. Well, no, since it was shiny, my eyes landed there. I can't help it, you see. I am a baby. And then the prisoners were brought in. One by one, familiar faces were dragged to the center of the execution ground, their hands tied, their eyes full of terror. I blinked. Wait a second. I know these people. My tiny fingers clenched around Cassius's sleeve as I narrowed my eyes, staring at them harder. Aren't these? Cassius's smooth, deep voice cut through my thoughts. They're the ones, right? I turned my head up at him. He met my gaze, sharp and piercing. The ones who left you to suffer. That's right. My chubby hands stilled. I blinked at the maids, now sobbing, pleading for mercy. One of them, a woman with tear-streaked cheeks, suddenly lifted her head and locked eyes with me. Princess, she wailed. Please, your highness. Have mercy on us. Another one sobbed desperately. We didn't mean to neglect you. It was a mistake. A terrible mistake. All eyes turned to me. Theon, sensing the tension, immediately panicked. All right. We saw them. Now let's go before the heads start rolling. Cassius ignored him. His gaze never left mine. She wants to stay, he said. Not a question. A statement. Silence. Theon's face lost all color. Nanny Narina nearly fainted. Even the prisoners looked horrified. I continued to stare at the maids. I wasn't scared. I wasn't even disturbed. Cassius, still watching me closely, gave a simple nod. The executioner raised his axe. The first maid was dragged forward, wailing. Princess, please. Her neck was pressed against the block, and the axe was ready to cut her head when Cassius turned my head towards his chest, saying, That's enough. We're leaving. I froze. Wait. Did he just block my view? I wiggled, flailing my arms. Nyang. Ga. Hey. I was watching that. Cassius's grip didn't loosen. If anything, he held me closer, completely shielding my view. You've seen enough. I pouted. Why bring me all the way here if you won't let me watch the main event? Meanwhile, Theon let out a shaky breath of relief. Finally. Thank the heavens. I swear my soul nearly left my body. I thought he was actually going to let her. Cassius shot him a glare. Do you think I have no sense? Theon. Nanny Narina, still pale, said, Your Majesty, this is really not a place for the princess. Please, let's leave at once. Cassius nodded. His strong arms kept me secure against him as he stood up. And as we were leaving, pitiful sobs filled the air. Princess, please, have mercy. I peeked over Cassius's shoulder to see the maids, the same ones who left me to starve, kneeling on the ground, their faces pale with terror. One of them, a woman with trembling hands, cried out, Please, Princess. Tell His Majesty to spare us. We were wrong. We won't do it again. Another sobbed, We didn't know. Please. We were foolish. Oh, now they remember I exist? I tilted my head, blinking at them innocently. My chubby fingers clutched onto Cassius's robes, and with that we turned and walked away, ignoring the desperate wails behind us. Now at the royal office of the ruthless emperor. I sat on Cassius's big desk, my tiny legs dangling off the edge, while Cassius, my big, scary, allegedly terrifying father, held me steady with one hand. It wasn't my fault I kept losing balance. I was still getting used to this whole being a baby thing. My coordination was atrocious. One second I'd be sitting fine and the next I'd be wobbling like a drunk potato. Every time I leaned too far, Cassius's grip tightened, preventing me from falling face first into his precious, boring documents. But that wasn't the weirdest part. The weirdest part was that Cassius was staring at me. Like really staring. I blinked up at him. He didn't blink back. I tilted my head. What do you want? Nanny Narina stood off to the side and Theon was busy flipping through papers. No one else seemed to find it odd that the emperor was just staring at his baby. So I squinted back at him. Was this a game? A silent battle of wills? Well, I wasn't about to lose. I stared back. Cassius, in his usual deep, calm voice, asked, Do other babies get scared when they go to the execution ground? Silence. I blinked. Nanny and Theon both looked at each other like he had just asked if birds could breathe underwater. Yes, Your Majesty, Nanny finally answered. Babies are very sensitive. A place like that would normally terrify them. Cassius hummed, looking thoughtful. Then why wasn't she scared? Is something wrong with her? What? Excuse me. My tiny fists clenched. Nothing is wrong with me, okay? I'm just mentally strong. I knew what was happening. I understood what an execution was. Cassius, completely ignoring my internal outrage, continued. She doesn't even get scared of me. That got Theon's attention. He snorted. That is strange, Your Majesty. Normally people see you and... He made a dramatic whoosh motion. They run for their lives. Cassius's crimson eyes didn't leave me. I puffed up my cheeks. Bah. GAA. I have mentally accepted my fate, okay? Why waste energy being scared when I'm stuck with him anyway? It's too exhausting to be scared all the time. Nanny, mistaking my dramatic baby protests for something meaningful, smiled softly. It's because she recognizes you as her father, Your Majesty. Cassius blinked. Father. Yes, Nanny nodded. Babies have instincts. They know who their people are no matter who they are. Well, I read the novel, so I already knew he was my father. I patted his hand casually with my tiny palm. Don't worry, since you're my father, I have accepted you. Cassius stared at me. I stared back. Then out of nowhere he declared, from now on she will stay in my chamber. What? Hello. Excuse me. I refuse. I want my own personal chamber, okay? A luxurious, spacious, separate chamber where I can roll around freely without the constant feeling of impending doom. But before I could protest with my fiercest baby babbling, Nanny bowed and said, As you wish, Your Majesty. I gasped. Nanny, how could you betray me like this? And just like that, my privacy was taken away by a bloodthirsty emperor. I was doomed. Nanny carried me to the emperor's chamber like I was a package being delivered to my inevitable fate. My tiny arms flailed in silent protest. I refuse. I object. I demand my own room. Hello. Anyone. But did my opinion matter? Oh, it did not. The grand double doors opened, revealing the emperor's chambers, huge, dark, and intimidating. The entire place screamed power and fear with its velvet curtains and the enormous bed fit for a tyrant. Nanny bowed, saying, I'll place the princess in the crib. No need, Cassius's deep voice interrupted. Just lay her on the bed. Excuse me. I stared at him in shock. Did this tyrant just say he wanted to share his bed with a baby? Nanny, the ultimate traitor, nodded obediently. As you wish, Your Majesty. And I was placed carefully on the plush mattress. My tiny fingers gripped the silky sheets. Soft. And with that she left. This woman. I trusted her. Just as I was recovering from my betrayal, Cassius did something unholy. He climbed into bed. Naked. My baby brain short-circuited. His robe hung loosely over his broad shoulders, revealing a chiseled chest that looked like it was sculpted by the gods themselves. His hair was messy and his piercing crimson eyes flickered toward me, calm and unreadable. I sucked in a breath well as much as my tiny lungs allowed. What kind of tyrant sleeps half-naked in front of a baby? He leaned against the headboard, one arm resting behind his head as he stared at me. His gaze was intense, like he was studying me. I stared back. We locked eyes. A staring contest again? Challenge accepted. I narrowed my tiny eyes. He didn't blink. I didn't blink. Then after what felt like an eternity he sighed. You really aren't afraid of me, huh? His voice was softer than usual. I tilted my head. Cassius's gaze flickered as if lost in thought. People tremble at the sight of me. They run. They beg for their lives. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. But you just look at me like I'm any other person. Not scared. As if you've accepted me for who I am. I blinked. I mean, yeah, I already mentally accepted him as my father. But hearing him say that, he sounded almost lonely. I frowned. Wait, is this man sad? Now I was really starting to think. Maybe he wasn't as terrifying as the rumors said. Maybe, well, he was still terrifying. But maybe he wasn't all bad. I reached out with my tiny hand and patted his arm. There, scary tyrant man. You're my father. I accept you. Cassius glanced at me and exhaled, shaking his head slightly. Ridiculous. I am talking with someone who doesn't even understand me. Hey, I can understand you. Then I decided to do something crazy. I wanted to turn over. I shifted, gathering all my baby strength. Alright, time to flip. I pushed with all my might. I didn't move. I tried again. Nothing. I wiggled. Still nothing. I was determined now. Gritting my non-existent baby teeth, I pushed my arms and legs down hard. And then, I flipped. I was on my stomach. Success. Cassius froze. The room fell into silence. Then, someone come inside. His voice was eerily calm. The doors burst open. Nanny rushed in panicked. Why, Your Majesty? What happened? Is the princess okay? Cassius gestured toward me. She flipped. Nanny gasped. I swear she almost fainted. That's her first time flipping over. Her hands covered her mouth in shock. Cassius looked at her sharply. She hasn't done this before? Nanny frantically shook her head. No, Your Majesty. This is her first time. Congratulations. The princess has flipped. Pause. Then, Cassius smirked. A rare, smug and satisfied smirk. He crossed his arms, looking very pleased. I guess it makes sense. She did it in front of me first. Hello. Who cares about that? I just achieved a life milestone. Nanny clapped her hands together, beaming. Princess Lavinia is growing up so fast. This is wonderful news. Cassius looked down at me, his crimson eyes gleaming. Impressive. I pouted. Of course it's impressive. Do you know how hard I worked for that? But instead of praising me properly, Cassius smirked again. Well then. His eyes gleamed, and for some reason I felt a chill run down my spine. I declare this day as a national holiday. I choked. What? Hello. Give me a break. Nanny's mouth fell open. Cassius smirked down at me like a man who had just made the greatest decision of his life. And just like that, I realized flipping in front of Cassius was the bad decision. Forgive me, but what did you just say? Theon asked in pure disbelief. Cassius, looking far too smug, repeated, a national holiday. In honor of Lavinia's first flip. Is this man serious? Theon blinked. For flipping? Yes. Nanny coughed as if she had swallowed her own shock. Why, Your Majesty, I understand your excitement, but... Cassius turned to her, raising an eyebrow. Are you disagreeing with me? Nanny immediately straightened, shaking her head frantically. And of course not. I would never. Traitor. But... She continued carefully, perhaps this plan should be reconsidered? Cassius frowned slightly, as if the mere thought of not celebrating my flip offended him. Theon, the only sane person left in the room, sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose before stepping forward. Your Majesty, if I may. Cassius nodded, allowing him to speak. Theon cleared his throat. Your Majesty, as of now, the people are still unaware of the princess's existence. Announcing a national holiday out of nowhere would only cause unnecessary confusion. Rumors would spread, and without proper preparation, it could lead to chaos. Nanny nodded quickly. That's right. We didn't even hold a formal celebration for her birth yet. Cassius narrowed his eyes slightly. So you're saying a national holiday is a bad idea? Theon and Nanny exchanged glances. Nanny, sweating bullets, forced a smile. Perhaps. Not a bad idea, Your Majesty. Just bad timing. Cassius tapped his fingers against his arm, clearly displeased. I gulped. Oh no. He's thinking. Then he smirked again. Fine. We won't declare a national holiday. I exhaled in relief. But... Oh no. We will hold a grand celebration for her instead. Theon and Nanny both froze. I froze. What? What have you done? Cassius's eyes gleamed with determination. A celebration grander than any before. Every noble, every royal, every important figure in the empire shall attend. It will be an event that will be remembered for centuries. Nanny paled. That's. Theon sighed, already mentally preparing for the mountain of work this would bring. Meanwhile, I wanted to cry. I just wanted to flip over. How did this happen? Cassius turned to Theon, his expression completely serious. Prepare everything for the princess's birth celebration. Theon nodded, already feeling exhausted. And just like that, my single, innocent little flip turned into the biggest imperial event of the century. Mm, mm, mm. I lay dramatically in my little crib, deep in thought, humming like a wise old sage contemplating the mysteries of the universe. Across from me, Nanny and Marilla kept exchanging glances, trying and failing to stifle their giggles. "She looks like she's thinking about something very serious," Marilla whispered, eyes twinkling with amusement. Nanny nodded sagely. "Let her be." "Yes, let me be." Because I was indeed thinking about something very serious. I was thinking about my great father, the Emperor, and how I was now 99% sure that he had some serious mental problems. I mean, what kind of lunatic declares a national holiday over a baby flipping over? Huh. Is he crazy? Well, yeah, he is crazy. I squinted at the ceiling. Was this a tyrant thing? Were all tyrants this insane? Maybe they killed too many people and that rotted their brains. Maybe the blood fumes got to their heads and now they couldn't think straight. Maybe the reason all tyrants acted like rabid war dogs was because their minds were long gone. I gasped. And then, "Oh my, what is my princess thinking about so deeply?" Nanny cooed, suddenly appearing beside my crib and lifting me into her arms. I blinked up at her, trapped in her grasp. "Nyan Naga." "Nanny, I think my father is broken." But of course she didn't understand my suffering. Instead she just smiled and patted my head like I was some innocent, clueless baby. "Let's go. It's time to see His Majesty, princess." "What? Again?" I froze and clutched her dress tightly. Stop. Enough. Why did I have to see that crazy man again and again? Couldn't I just live a peaceful, tyrant-free life? I mean, who knew what he'd do next? Yesterday he declared a national holiday because I flipped. What if today he decided to conquer another country because I sneezed? What if he executed someone because I yawned? I could not take that responsibility. I am done here. I give up. So let's go somewhere else, Nanny. The royal palace is huge, plenty of places to hide. But of course I couldn't do anything. My 3-month-old body betrayed me. Fine. I give up again. Let's meet my brain-lost father because what else can I do? Life is so tiring. Especially a baby's life. And then, Nanny and Marilla stopped. What happened? I blinked and looked forward only to find a middle-aged man standing before us. His hair was graying, neatly combed back, his posture stiff with nobility, and his gaze, oh his gaze, was fixed on me with something that made my baby instincts scream in protest. "What's with that look, old man? Haven't you seen a beautiful, adorable baby like me before?" His eyes weren't filled with admiration, curiosity, or even mild interest. No. Those eyes looked at me with disgust. Hatred. Loathing. "Excuse me. Sir, I am 3 months old. What could I possibly have done to you?" And then, Nanny and Marilla bowed deeply and said in unison, "Greetings, Marquis Everett." Everett? My brain, which had previously been running at 1 mile per hour, suddenly jolted awake. Everett. Where have I? Everett. That Everett. This was the Everett family, the one who adopted the female lead of this stupid novel so she could easily marry Grand Duke Osric, the male lead. This was also the family responsible for my banishment. They helped Osric remove me from the royal family. Also, they were the ones who gave poison to the second lead to poison me. So the jerks have appeared, huh? I squinted my baby eyes at him, resisting the urge to point my tiny fingers in accusation. Forget it. It's not like I could do anything even if I pointed my tiny, beautiful fingers at him. And then, as if to solidify my worst suspicions, the old man spoke. "Is this the princess?" His voice was polite, but there was something in it. Something I did not like. Nanny hesitated before nodding, her expression neutral. "Yes, my lord." I squinted at him. "What? No bow. No, your highness. Where's the respect, huh? I may be tiny, but I was still the princess of this empire. Even my crazy father, the tyrant himself, held me like I was made of gold, but this geezer looked at me like I was an insect." I gasped dramatically. "Is this an act of treason?" I looked at Nanny. "Nanny, arrest him. Seize him. Throw him into the dungeons. Off with his head." Oh wait. Oh, that's something my father would actually do. Still, I couldn't let this disrespect slide. I narrowed my eyes and puffed up my cheeks. "Nyan, ga." Old man, you better greet me, huh? And then, I can't believe someone like her is the princess, he muttered under his breath. But I still caught it. Oh. Look at this old geezer. What's wrong with me, a princess, you rotten fucking jerk? I flailed in Nanny's arms, kicking my tiny feet. Let me down. I want to fight him. Let me at him. But Nanny just patted my back. Shoo, princess, be good. Be good. Be good. This man was openly disrespecting me and I was supposed to be good. I want my father now. Naya. Papa, come fast. Papa. And then that old geezer said something again. You shouldn't have been exits. Now I am pissed. There is only one thing I can do now to teach this old geezer a lesson. And that is, Wah. I screamed. I howled. I unleashed the full unholy power of my baby lungs. If this bastard thought he could insult me, the princess, and walk away unscathed, he was dead wrong. What? Nanny gasped, nearly dropping me. What's the matter, princess? Oh, Nanny. Sweet, naive Nanny. The matter was that this old geezer just disrespected me, and I was not going to let it slide. I flailed my tiny arms. I kicked my tiny feet. I thrashed like a possessed shrimp. My tiny, beautiful face scrunched up as I poured every ounce of my baby fury into my wailing. Wah! Marquis Everett, the old geezer himself, took a step back, clearly shaken. Huh. Not so tough now, huh? My cries were like the wrath of heaven itself, shaking the very foundations of this palace. Princess, please. Nanny begged, bouncing me in her arms. What happened? What's wrong? Oh dear heavens. But I would not be silenced. What? The palace staff were staring. Servants peeked from behind pillars. Even Marilla looked like she wanted to disappear. And then, a voice cut through the chaos like a blade of ice. What's going on here? Silence. Well, silence from everyone except me. I of course kept crying. As I was committed to my act of war. The temperature in the hallway dropped to freezing levels. The sheer weight of authority pressed down on everyone present. Nanny, Marilla, and that old geezer all stiffened before immediately bowing. Your Majesty, they chorused. I meanwhile peeked at him through my teary eyes. My great and terrifying father stood there, his brow furrowed in dangerous displeasure. His crimson eyes swept over the scene, and when they landed on me he softened, just a little. I sniffled dramatically. He stepped forward, his presence making everyone shrink into themselves. Why is my daughter crying? His voice was cold. Demanding. Nanny gulped. We don't know, Your Majesty. The princess suddenly started crying. I wailed louder. What? Marquis Everett was standing as still as a corpse, sweat beginning to form on his forehead. Huh. How does it feel, old man? How does it feel to be scared, huh? I continued my performance, thrashing in Nanny's arms like a fish out of water. The Emperor's expression darkened. Give her to me. Nanny obeyed instantly, handing me over with trembling hands. The moment my father took me into his arms, I stopped crying. Easily. Just like that. The entire room froze. Nanny blinked. Marilla's jaw dropped. Marquis Everett looked like he was witnessing a miracle. I meanwhile snuggled into my father's arms, rubbing my tiny face against his chest like an innocent, delicate little baby. I even threw in a content sigh for extra effect. So warm. So safe. So tyrant. Why? Theon sighed in relief. I think the princess just wanted you, Your Majesty. Well, not exactly, but it's also true. Nanny and Marilla nodded in agreement like pigeons bobbing their heads. The Emperor, however, wasn't looking at them. His sharp crimson eyes remained locked on me as he wiped the lingering tears from my chubby cheeks. This is the first time, he muttered. I blinked sleepily against his chest. First time what? The Emperor's fingers paused against my cheek. His brows furrowed slightly as if he himself was puzzled by his own emotions. I saw her crying. Silence. And then he continued in that same deep, foreboding voice. My daughter never cried like this before me. And for some reason, I don't like it. Well, so this tyrant is human after all. I stared up at him, my tiny baby brain working overtime to process this revelation. My father was so nice. Sure, he was cold and terrifying. Sure, he was possibly responsible for war crimes. But he cared. He didn't like seeing me cry. He was the best tyrant father in the world. She looks uglier while she cries. Never mind. I was done. Completely done with this man. The room went utterly silent. Then he simply turned towards Nanny, his expression cold and unreadable. Why did she cry? He asked. It was that old geezer. Nanny paled faster than a vampire at sunrise. I don't know, Your Majesty. It was sudden. One moment she was fine and the next, Dabu. She hesitated, then ever so carefully threw Marquis Everett under the bus by glancing at him like a traitor pointing out the mole in a spy movie. The Emperor's gaze followed hers. And Marquis Everett was doomed. The poor old man visibly shriveled under the Emperor's death stare. Did you say something that upset my daughter? The Emperor asked, his voice colder than a winter storm. Marquis Everett flinched so hard I thought his soul briefly left his body for a vacation. "No, Your Majesty. I would never. And even if I did, which I didn't, the princess wouldn't have understood anyway." The temperature in the room plummeted. The Emperor's eyes darkened dangerously. "So, you're saying my daughter is stupid? What? How dare he?" I gasped dramatically, glaring at the old geezer with all the righteous fury of a betrayed princess. Marquis Everett turned the color of expired milk. No, Your Highness. I would never dare." The Emperor's eyes narrowed further. A tiger circling its prey, then why did she cry? Marquis Everett panicked. "I don't know, Your Majesty. I really don't know." The Emperor scanned him coldly, silent for a moment. And then in the most casual, dismissive voice he said, "Maybe she didn't like you." I nodded aggressively. "That's right. I don't like him, Father. Throw him out." Marquis Everett looked like he had been slapped by destiny itself. The Emperor turned away, already walking off with me still in his arms. "Please do not appear in front of my daughter again. I don't want to see her ugly face anymore." Hold on. I was offended. Very offended. But, since he just roasted that old geezer in my honor, I decided to let it slide. Marquis Everett stood there, frozen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. He had served the Emperor. He had witnessed countless ruthless decisions, countless cold-blooded executions. But never, had he seen His Majesty being so casual with his daughter. Marquis Everett swallowed, his entire existence reconsidering itself. Meanwhile I, the adorable princess, was feeling quite victorious. "You see that jerk? You better respect me next time." The crisp afternoon air drifted through the imperial garden as my great father, the terrifying yet oddly comfortable human furnace, walked with me still cradled in his arms. A fresh air finally. My earlier dramatic meltdown had drained all my baby energy, but now I felt refreshed. Just as I was basking in the glory of the afternoon sun, Nanny appeared holding a bottle of warm water. "Your Majesty," she said, bowing slightly. "The princess must be thirsty after all that crying." I was not. Okay, maybe a little. Father took the bottle without a word and, to my utter horror, brought it to my lips. Oh, the almighty Emperor was feeding me. For a split second I considered rejecting the bottle purely out of dignity. But then, the warm water slid down my throat and wow, it was refreshing. My tiny body felt recharged like a royal baby battery. Maybe crying had some perks after all. "She really likes being with Your Majesty," Nanny commented with a knowing smile. I blinked up at my father. He blinked down at me. A staring contest between a feared ruler and a 3-month-old baby commenced once again. Then something caught my eye. Flowers. Whoa. My tiny hands wiggled excitedly toward the vibrant garden ahead. There were numerous types of flowers. Roses, tulips, lavender, and even some I had never seen before. A sea of colors stretched before me, swaying gently in the breeze like nature's own royal court. But then, my eyes locked onto something special. A sunflower. Bright, golden, and absolutely massive compared to my tiny baby self. It stood tall and proud, basking in the sunlight, its rich yellow petals radiating warmth. It was more beautiful, just like Father's eyes. Crimson red, shining under the sun. I wanted it. I wiggled harder, my tiny hands reaching desperately. Father, ever the all-powerful Emperor, noticed my plight. Without a word, he stepped forward, plucked the sunflower with his own hands and handed it to me. It was enormous. I clutched it with both hands, my baby strength barely enough to hold it up. But I liked it. I giggled. From the corner of my eye, I noticed people watching. Their expressions softened, their eyes filled with warmth. "She has the same taste as you, Your Majesty," Theon remarked. I froze. Wait, father liked sunflowers too? I looked up at him in shock. He looked down at me like I was some rare and precious artifact. Then, to my absolute disbelief, he reached out and gently rubbed my cheek. "Dude, what's this? This tenderness? This softness? Is he actually doting on me?" Before my brain could process this new information, father turned to Theon. "So why did the Marquis come here?" Theon's face returned to its usual businesslike demeanor. "Oh, to talk about the water crisis, Your Majesty." Father frowned. "Didn't we solve that last year? What's the problem now?" "Looks like there's more trouble, Your Majesty." Father sighed. Theon hesitated before adding, "And he also wanted to discuss something personal." "Something personal?" My tiny ears perked up. Father's face darkened. "Don't tell me." Theon sighed. "Yes, Your Majesty. You've guessed right." Father sighed again. "He still hasn't given up?" "What?" "Hey, I want to know too." The plot thickens. My curiosity piqued. What was this matter they spoke of? What was this geezer so stubborn about? Why did this feel like one of those intense palace dramas? "Come on, tell me. I'm curious." Finally, father exhaled sharply. "Looks like I need to declare once and for all that I am never getting married." I nodded. "Ah, so that old geezer wanted to set his daughter up with my—" "Wait, what?" My flower fell from my hands as the realization struck me like a divine lightning bolt. I turned to father. I turned to Theon. I turned back to father. Wait. You're saying my father has never married? Then that meant I was the daughter of a bachelor. Marilla quickly picked up the flower and handed it back to me, but I barely noticed. My brain was short-circuiting. Wait. He never married. Why? Did he not like anyone? No crush? No love? Nothing. Sure, he was a tyrant, but he was still human. Even villains in stories had tragic love interests or at least a scandalous affair or two. But my father? Nothing. Something wasn't adding up. And then, my eyes landed on Theon. Theon, who was always by my father's side. Theon, who was not scared of my terrifying, bloodthirsty Emperor of Doom father. Theon, who was calm, competent, and loyal to him for years. My father and Theon. My God. I gasped dramatically, nearly dropping my sunflower again. "Theon, you sly dog." It all made sense now. The lingering stares, the unwavering loyalty, the way father only ever let him speak casually in his presence. And Theon never left his side. Ever. This wasn't just devotion. This was love. I looked between them, scandalized. My father, the most feared man in the empire, was in love with his right-hand man. Theon, completely oblivious to my groundbreaking discovery, continued, "Your Majesty, should I prepare the official decree to announce your decision?" Father gave a curt nod. "Yes. Let's put an end to this matter." I nodded along. Yes. Let's put an end to the old geezer's matchmaking plans so you and Theon can live happily ever after. I reached out with my tiny, chubby hand and patted my father's hand gently. "Don't worry, father. I accept your and Theon's love." I looked up at him with deep understanding, my eyes filled with support. "I totally ship you two." Father raised an eyebrow. Theon frowned. They exchanged a glance. "What's wrong with her?" Theon asked, thoroughly confused. Father sighed. "Who knows?" Father gave me a look that was half curiosity, half concern, like he was wondering if I'd inherited some questionable brain cells. I had cracked the imperial mystery. The reason my powerful, terrifying, handsome father never married was because his true love was right in front of him this whole time. "Maybe she is thinking something stupid," father said. But I just sat there giggling, my eyes nearly twinkling. A life was good. I lay on my soft, cushy imperial bed, grinning like an idiot, completely lost in the beautiful, heartwarming delusion I had crafted. In my mind, my great and mighty father, the terrifying emperor feared by all, and Theon was in his arms, dramatically confessing his undying love. Oh, what a sight! Two powerful men, forbidden love, palace secrets. The mere thought made me giggle wildly, my tiny body wiggling with joy. Nanny and Marilla, who had been standing nearby, exchanged glances. "Why is she laughing like that?" Marilla whispered, clearly confused. "I have no idea," Nanny replied, watching me like I had lost my baby mind. Before they could uncover my top-secret delusions, the door creaked open. The room fell silent. The air shifted. A regal presence entered. The Emperor, aka my father, had arrived. Nanny and Marilla immediately bowed. "Your Majesty," they greeted in unison before excusing themselves. "Good night to both of you." Then they left, leaving just me and my father. And oh boy, I still couldn't stop smiling. I stared at him with sparkling eyes, my mind still replaying the glorious imaginary scene of him holding Theon close, whispering sweet nothings. Meanwhile, the Emperor just stared at me, expressionless, silent, yet somehow warm. He took a seat beside me, leaning down, his large hand brushing against my tiny face. "What are you so happy about?" he asked, voice deep and smooth. I smiled like an idiot. What could possibly make a 3-month-old that happy? Emperor wondered. I giggled again, kicking my chubby baby legs in delight. He exhaled softly, almost amused, and then he stood up. "Oh, are you going somewhere?" And then he took off his shirt. I froze. Hold on. Wait a minute. You shameless man." I wobbled frantically, flailing my tiny arms in distress. "How can you just undress in front of a lady? Have you no decency?" Of course, since I was still a 3-month-old baby, all that came out was a series of high-pitched wails and wild flailing. The Emperor blinked at me, utterly unfazed. "What's wrong with her now?" he muttered, unbothered as he continued to change. I squeezed my eyes shut. "Where is your modesty, Emperor?" But then curiosity got the best of me. I peeked. And then what I saw was horror. My tiny body stiffened and my breath caught in my throat. My wide, innocent baby eyes stretched even further as I took in the sight before me. His back. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't anything like the flawless, godly physique I had naively imagined in my tiny baby head. It was ruined. Marred. Covered in scars. Not just any scars. Deep, cruel, unforgiving lashes. Old wounds, healed but never truly gone. My breath hitched. These weren't mere battle scars. The kind warriors wore them like badges of honor. Oh, this was suffering. This was torment. Someone had whipped him. Over and over and over again. His entire back was a canvas of pain. Scar after scar, overlapping, stretching, clawing across his skin. I could almost hear the echo of a whip cracking through the air. The searing pain that must have burned into his flesh. My tiny fingers clenched into fists. Who could do this? Who could be so cruel to you? And why? Why would someone do this to you? Aren't you a tyrant? A bloodthirsty emperor? I tried to hold it in, I really did. But I was a 3-month-old baby. There was only so much I could take. Tears blurred my vision. I squeezed my eyes shut, my tiny chest heaving. No, I couldn't let them fall. Not in front of him. Not when he stood so tall, so strong, so... The first tear slipped down my cheek. And then another. And another. And then I broke. Wah. I cried. Loud, messy, uncontrollable. The Emperor, no, my papa, immediately turned to me, his head snapping toward my trembling form. His usual calm, emotionless face shifted. His eyes widening slightly, his lips parting in alarm. What happened? His deep voice was laced with urgency. And I just cried harder. "Why are you crying?" he asked again, but this time his voice had softened. "You were smiling until now." He sat beside me, large and imposing, but there was something almost helpless in the way he looked at me. "Are you hungry?" he tried, scanning my tiny face for answers. Wah. Did you poop?" I glared at him through my tears. He looked completely lost. A man who ruled an empire and who wielded power that made grown men tremble was panicking over a crying baby. I wailed even louder. "Someone come over," he commanded, his deep voice urgent yet slightly strained. Within moments, the doors burst open and Nanny and Marilla rushed in, their expressions frantic. "Your Majesty," Nanny gasped, hurrying toward the bed where I lay, kicking my tiny feet and sobbing uncontrollably. Marilla, equally breathless, placed a gentle hand on my forehead. Is she sick? Is she in pain? She asked, her voice laced with worry. Nanny frowned, checking me over with experienced hands. She seems okay. Then why is she crying? Marilla asked, her panic rising. Do you think we need to call the imperial doctor? And that was it. The emperor snapped. Someone call the imperial doctor. And get the priest too. Silence. Nanny and Marilla froze. The priest. Nanny repeated. What if it's something else? We must be prepared for anything. Emperor said. I wanted to scream. There is nothing wrong with me, you fools. I just saw my father's scarred back and now my tiny baby heart is breaking into pieces. But of course all they could hear was, wah. Nanny scooped me into her arms, rocking me gently. Shoo, shoo, little princess. It's all right. Everything is good, my princess, she murmured, patting my back. But I kept crying. Louder. Harder. My tiny hands stretched out, reaching, toward my father. I didn't want Nanny. I didn't want Marilla. I wanted him. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to be with my father. Emperor turned to the guards. What are you waiting for? Call the imperial doctor. The priest. No, call an entire temple if you have to. The guards froze under her intensity. But before they could run off in terror, Nanny hesitated. Her eyes fell on my tiny shaking hands, still reaching desperately for my father. Your Majesty, she murmured. I think she just wants you. The entire room went silent. The imperial doctor? The priest? No, just him. Emperor Cassius stared at me. Me. Nanny nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. The emperor stood still, his crimson eyes unreadable. He looked at me, truly looked at me, as if the idea that someone might actually want him had never even crossed his mind. How utterly ridiculous. I wailed louder, stretching my tiny hands further, fingers curling desperately. The tension in the room thickened. For a moment I thought he might refuse. That he might just stand there in all his terrifying imperial stubbornness, watching me cry like I was some puzzle he couldn't solve. But then, he moved. Cautiously. Slowly. As if he were afraid he might break me. And then finally he picked me up. The moment his arms wrapped around me, everything faded. My sobs quieted, turning into small sniffles. The warmth of his chest, the steady rhythmic sound of his heartbeat. It was comforting. Safe. I nestled against him, curling into the warmth, my tiny hands grasping at his robes. He smelled like steel, parchment, and something faintly familiar. Something I couldn't name. The emperor held me like he didn't quite know what to do with me, like I was a fragile piece of porcelain that had suddenly come to life in his arms. And then he hugged me tighter. Not too much. Not enough to hurt me. But just enough for me to feel it, to feel him. Like he had finally guessed what I wanted. Like he had finally realized I had chosen him. And if that was what he thought, then he was right. His crimson eyes softened, searching my tiny face for an answer to a question he didn't know how to ask. You wanted me? He murmured, his voice so low, so raw it did something to me. My tiny hands reached for his face. Softly, carefully. I giggled, my fingers tracing his strong jaw and his warm skin. I didn't know what kind of pain he had endured. I didn't know the weight of the past he carried on his scarred back. But I did know one thing. I would make sure those memories faded. I would create a home that neither of us ever had. A home that was warm, safe, and filled with love. I promise, Papa. And so, with all the strength my tiny body had, I hugged him back. This moment felt important. So much more than just a baby wanting comfort. Until now, I had only been adjusting to this new life, this palace, this world. But now, as I clung to my father's warmth, I knew. I wanted to stay. I wanted to be his daughter. His one and only. And just as I felt myself drifting off in his arms, warm and safe for the first time since I arrived in this world, I swear I felt like home. The palace was in chaos. Well, not the scary kind of chaos, though for me it might as well have been. Everywhere I looked, people were running around, carrying golden drapes, fragrant flowers, and silk banners that shimmered under the chandeliers. The entire palace was turning into some grand spectacle, and all for me. Today was the day. The day Papa would introduce me to high society. My official introduction ceremony. I should have been honored, but honestly, I just wanted a nap. Princess, it's time to get ready. Morel chirped excitedly as she approached my crib. I blinked at her, still wrapped snugly in my blanket. I had been quite enjoying my day of doing absolutely nothing. My chubby arms flopped uselessly at my sides. I groaned internally. Why did they have to disturb my peace? Nanny scooped me in her arms, chuckling at my half-lidded eyes. Oh dear, the princess looks like she'd rather sleep through her big day. Yes, I would. Thank you very much. But apparently my opinion didn't matter because the next thing I knew, Morale and Nanny had carried me to a wardrobe. And my sleepiness vanished in an instant. What the hell is this? A mountain of dresses waited for me. Not one. Not two. Not even 5. But an entire army of dresses in every shade and fabric imaginable. Silken ones, lacy ones, dresses embroidered with pearls. Some even adorned with tiny gemstone details. So many dresses. I blinked. Surely they didn't expect me to wear all of them, right? Oh, look at this one. And this. And this. Morelle's excitement grew with every dress she pulled out. What do you think, princess? Which one do you want to wear? I stared at the mountain of fabric piling up beside me. Did they really expect me to make a choice? I was 3 months old. The only choices I made involved whether to cry now or later. Nanny clapped her hands together. Why don't we try all of them? Wait, what? Before I could protest, which let's be real would have just been a few frustrated baby gurgles, Morale had already slipped the first dress over my head. A lacy pink monstrosity with way too many ribbons. Then a white one with golden embroidery. Then a frilly purple one that made me feel like a puffball. I wiggled my legs weakly, trying to signal my distress, but they were too busy squealing over the next outfit. This one brings out her eyes. Oh, but this one makes her look like a little angel. I love this one. No, wait, try this one first. I was drowning in silk and lace. My tiny arms flailed as yet another gown was thrown over my head. This was torture. This was worse than my butt cleaning time. This was... Hug. Can't I just wear anything and be done with it? Okay, let's try this one, Nanny chirped as she yanked off the last dress and slipped another one on me. I was too tired to even look at the thing anymore. All I knew was that the fabric felt fancy and light, like it was made for a lazy baby like me. Then suddenly Marilla gasped dramatically, hands clapping together like a delighted seal. Oh my, she looks so beautiful. Nanny let out a dreamy sigh, stars practically exploding in her eyes. My princess, you look absolutely divine. Finally. They chose something. Then they plopped a tiny crown on my head and slipped tiny shoes onto my feet. Tiny shoes. Why did I even need shoes? It's not like I was going to walk to my own grand debut. Princess, Nanny cooed. Would you like to see yourself? I blinked. Of course I do. After trying on a whole mountain of dresses, I must see what was so special about this one. They carried me to the mirror and sat me on a plush chair. My breath hitched. The reflection staring back at me was breathtaking. Big, crimson eyes blinked in wonder, gleaming like polished rubies under the soft golden light. My golden curls framed my round face. A delicate, glittering headband resting on my head with stones that matched my eye color. The dress I wore was the softest thing I had ever felt. An ivory and gold masterpiece that shimmered with every tiny movement. Tiny embroidered flowers danced across the fabric, their golden threads glowing like magic. I wiggled my fingers, watching the layered skirt ripple like waves of light, kissed with hints of crimson at the edges. A deep red velvet cloak draped over my shoulders, making me look like a queen from a fairy tale. Was this really me? A gurgle of delight bubbled up in my throat and I reached out to touch the mirror. I was beautiful. I knew I was beautiful, but this beautiful? Well, I had truly outdone myself by simply existing. I fell in love with myself on the spot. What a masterpiece. I looked like a miniature female version of my father, but cuter. Way cuter. No wonder they made me suffer through all those dresses. It was all worth it. I turned to Nanny and Marilla with the most serious baby expression I could manage. This was an important moment. They took one look at me and chuckled. It looks like our princess has fallen in love with herself, Nanny said, smiling warmly. Of course I have. Have they seen me? I was adorable. Before I could admire myself any longer, Nanny scooped me up in her arms. All right, let's go, my princess. The emperor must be waiting. I nodded, feeling quite regal in my new attire. Now I just wonder how Papa will react. And just like that, Nanny and Marilla carried me down the grand hallway, my confidence soaring. I had suffered through countless dresses for this moment. As we neared the grand entrance, I saw them, Papa and Theon, waiting for me. But this time, Papa looked different. I blinked, then blinked again. Was that a cape? A massive flowing cloak billowed behind him like he was some kind of royal superhero. The rich crimson and gold embroidery shimmered under the light, emphasizing his regal, commanding aura. His broad shoulders, his tall, imposing figure. This was the Emperor. He wasn't just my father right now. He was the Emperor of the Empire. And he was absolutely stunning. Oh, the princess is here. Theon's voice pulled me out of my daze. Papa turned his gaze toward me. His sharp, piercing eyes softened instantly, his expression warm and gentle. That's right, Papa, behold your masterpiece of a daughter. Nanny and Marilla bowed, but Theon jumped right in. Oh my, she looks exquisite. Theon gushed, clapping his hands dramatically. Absolutely breathtaking. Then turning to Papa, he grinned. She's so beautiful, isn't she, Your Majesty? I looked at Papa expectantly. Of course I am. Say it, Papa. Say it out loud for the people in the back. But Papa just stood there, his crimson eyes locked on me. He was silent. Too silent. I blinked, suddenly worried. Was he going to disagree? Then, without a word, he stretched out his arms and took me into his embrace. Indeed, he said, his deep voice rich and smooth. Then he kissed my forehead and murmured, My daughter is absolutely stunning. Finally. I grinned, my tiny chest puffing up with even more pride. I told you. Your daughter is gorgeously stunning. Theon laughed. Oh dear, she even knows it. Well, of course I am. Beauty should be acknowledged. And then Papa turned, his regal cloak billowing behind him like a living shadow, and with a single nod, he commanded the grand doors to open. The two guards bowed deeply before pushing the massive golden doors apart, revealing the grand hall beyond. A sea of nobles, knights, and dignitaries awaited, their gazes locked onto the entrance with anticipation. I swallowed. This is happening. Papa took a step forward, holding me securely in his arms. Let's go, he said. And just like that, I was about to be introduced to the world. The massive golden doors swung open with an echoing creak, revealing a breathtaking sight before me. The grand hall stretched endlessly, its ceiling soaring high above, glimmering with countless chandeliers that sparkled like captured stars. Red and gold banners draped across the walls, their fabric shimmering under the warm glow of enchanted lanterns. The floor gleamed like polished mirrors, reflecting the sea of nobles and knights gathered for this oh-so-special occasion, my official introduction to society. Oh boy. Presenting His Majesty Emperor Cassius Devereux and Her Highness the Imperial Princess Lavinia Devereux, the royal announcer's voice boomed across the hall, making sure that everyone in the Empire would know exactly who had arrived. Papa stepped forward with the grace of a ruler born to command. He was draped in the full imperial regalia, a deep crimson cloak embroidered with golden threads flowing behind him like the wings of a mighty eagle. His golden hair shimmered under the dazzling lights, and his piercing crimson eyes held a power that sent shivers down the spines of every noble present. He looked every bit like the emperor he was. And then, there was me. Held securely in my father's arms, I gazed upon the sea of nobles, knights, and esteemed guests that filled the enormous hall. A wave of gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd as they laid eyes on me. My golden curls gleamed just like my father's, and my ruby-red eyes, undeniably a mark of my imperial lineage, blinked curiously at the scene before me. One by one, the nobles fell to their knees, heads bowed in deep reverence. The weight of the moment settled in the air, thick with awe and formality. Papa lifted his chin, his voice calm but filled with authority. Rise. Like a perfectly rehearsed performance, the sea of people rose in unison, their eyes locking onto me, their expressions ranging from adoration to curiosity. I sat there in my father's arms, feeling like the star of a grand play. Oh, the power I held at just 3 months old. I love it. Just then, Theon stepped forward with a smirk. Your Majesty, the people are eager. Please introduce the princess to them. At his words, Papa nodded, and in a single fluid motion he raised me high above his head. He lifted me high into the air. What? For a moment I hung midair, my tiny arms flailing slightly as Papa held me up for the entire court to see. The hall went silent. The nobles, knights, and attendants held their breath as if they were witnessing something divine. I, on the other hand, was screaming internally. Papa, what are you doing? Have you lost your mind? Put me down. This was it. My royal introduction. My grand moment. And this was how it was happening. Just like Mufasa introducing Simba to the Pride Lands. I could almost hear the invisible choir breaking into a dramatic chant. A heavenly sunbeam shining down upon me as if the universe itself were acknowledging my greatness. At this rate, someone might actually throw flower petals or worse, start crying from the holy experience of beholding me. That's when Theon's voice rang out like a royal proclamation. Behold, the only daughter of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Cassius Devereux, the Imperial Princess of the Illyrian Empire, Lavinia Devereux. That's how you introduce someone. And then, in perfect synchronization, the entire hall bowed deeply, their voices echoing in unison. We greet Imperial Princess Lavinia. My tiny baby brain short-circuited. Wow, I feel like I just became a deity. I looked around at the sea of bent heads. Even the knights, even the scary-looking nobles, even the ladies in their shimmering gowns. Everyone was bowing to me. I suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of power. I, Lavinia Devereux, was indeed someone special. Papa finally lowered me back into his arms, his crimson eyes gleaming with amusement and pride. My wide, stunned expression was still frozen in place. What just happened? Meanwhile, on the sidelines, Nanny and Mariella looked ridiculously proud, eyes glistening, hands clasped together, expressions so dramatic they could easily win an award for most emotionally overwhelmed attendance of the year. Was I crowned queen already? Did I defeat a dragon while being held midair? Because, judging by their faces, I had just achieved the greatest feat known to mankind. I gulped. If this was only my introduction, I feared what future ceremonies would look like. Then Papa took his majestic emperor strides toward the grand throne, my eyes locked onto it like a moth to a flame. Whoa, what a beautiful chair. A ridiculously huge, golden, jewel-encrusted chair that looked like it could swallow 10 of me. It gleamed under the chandeliers, its intricate carvings forming dragons, phoenixes, and celestial patterns. It was practically screaming power and authority. I want to sit on it. I wiggled in Papa's arms, staring longingly at the glorious seat of absolute authority. But before I could make my move, Papa gracefully took his seat, and with me still in his arms. Wait, that works too. That's when Theon chuckled. Looks like she likes the throne, Your Majesty. Papa hummed, his gaze never leaving me. He reached out, his long fingers gently caressing my tiny face. Instinctively, I grabbed onto his hand, my tiny fingers curling around his. A hush fell over the hall. I felt it immediately, the shift in the air. The disbelief. Not adoration. Not melted hearts. No, they couldn't believe it. The cold-blooded, ruthless, merciless emperor, the very man who sent shivers down their spines with just a glance, was holding me as if I were his entire world. And for the first time they saw warmth in his eyes. A ripple of hushed whispers spread across the grand hall like a wave. I may not hear what they are whispering, but I can guess. Is this real? The emperor. Smiling. I must be hallucinating. He looks gentle. Gentle. His Majesty. The same man who once ordered an entire noble house executed without blinking. Look at how she holds his hand, and he lets her. This is the first time I've seen His Majesty touch someone without intending to kill them. Perhaps the princess is blessed by the heavens to tame the dragon himself. I smirked. But, hey, that's only for me, okay? The warmth belongs to me. No one else. Then Theon leaned in with a bright smile. Your Majesty, shall we begin the gifting ceremony? Wait, what? Do we have something like that too? Well, I'm ready. Gifts. Papa gave a small nod and then, without warning, he shifted me onto his lap so that I could have a better view. The hall remained eerily silent, filled with people watching our every move. Then, with a dramatic sweep of his arm, Theon stepped forward. The gifting ceremony shall now commence. I blinked. Slowly I turned my head, only to be met with an endless, long line of nobles and officials stretching across the hall. Each one held something. A fancy-looking box, a golden tray, or mysterious items covered with velvet cloths. Whoa, this was going to take forever. Papa held me securely in his arms, his grip firm yet gentle as my eyes sparkled with uncontainable excitement. Gifts. Oh, glorious, shiny, extravagant gifts. And we all know, no matter who we are, where we come from, or how young we might be, everyone loves gifts. And since I was an imperial princess, I could only imagine the treasures that awaited me. I wiggled eagerly in Papa's arms, my eyes sparkling with anticipation. Come on, hurry up. I was ready to be showered in riches. Theon, ever the dramatic announcer, raised his hand with a flourish. The gifting ceremony shall commence. The nobles and officials, lined up like an army of peacocks, straightened their backs. Servants rushed forward, presenting lavishly adorned boxes and velvet-draped trays. It will take forever. But I grinned. Yes, yes, bring me my riches. The grand hall buzzed with anticipation, the air thick with reverence and awe as the first noble stepped forward. He bowed so low I genuinely feared he might snap in half. I greet your majesty and your highness, he spoke with utmost reverence. It is my greatest honor to present this humble gift to the imperial princess. At his signal, a servant stepped forward, lifting the lid of an exquisite velvet box with the utmost care. My tiny eyes widened in fascination. Nestled inside was a golden rattle, encrusted with tiny rubies that sparkled under the grand chandeliers. That's fancy. I definitely want that. Without hesitation I reached forward, my tiny fingers wiggled towards the beautiful, glittering object. What else was I supposed to do? It was shiny. I must have it. Papa, ever the all-powerful emperor, didn't even need to say a word. With a mere flick of his hand, a servant immediately stepped forward, bowing deeply before presenting the golden rattle to me with both hands, like it was some kind of sacred treasure. I grabbed it instantly, shaking it with pure delight. The moment my fingers wrapped around the rattle, the entire court collectively gasped. Look, the princess has accepted it, someone whispered in awe. Her Highness has chosen her first gift. How wise. How refined. Wait, what? I blinked, staring at the crowd with mild disbelief. Excuse me? I agree it's beautiful, but I just grabbed a shiny thing. Let's not overanalyze this, people. Papa, however, merely smiled, the expression soft and, dare I say, pleased. It seems my daughter has taken a liking to your gift. The noble trembled with joy, his face almost glowing with pride. I am honored beyond words, your majesty. Before I could process the sheer level of dramatic reactions happening around me, another noble stepped forward. I wiggled excitedly, eager to see what awaited me next. This time the noble carried an even grander box, opening it with a flourish. My tiny jaw nearly dropped. Inside, lying atop luxurious silk, was a tiny jeweled dagger. What? Excuse me. A dagger. I gawked at the blade, its hilt embedded with gleaming emeralds, its craftsmanship flawless and intricate. Her Highness must have a weapon fit for a ruler, the noble declared proudly, as if bestowing upon me the most obvious and necessary item for a 3-month-old baby. Slowly, very slowly, I turned my head towards Papa, my crimson eyes silently questioning his sanity. Is this normal? Why are they giving a 3-month-old a dagger? Papa simply hummed, his expression utterly unfazed, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. She may not need it now, but one day she will. One day. Papa, I can barely hold my own head up sometimes. And yet the entire court nodded in agreement, murmuring their approval. Such foresight. His Majesty has thought of everything. As expected of the Emperor's daughter, she shall be a warrior one day. Truly fitting for a princess of Valerian. I stared at them, my tiny fingers still clutching the golden rattle in one hand while the other remained frozen in disbelief. My people were insane. Absolutely insane. But, you know what? Fine. If they want to believe I'm a baby prodigy, I'm not going to stop them. I puffed up my tiny chest, looking as regal as I could. Papa chuckled, ruffling my golden curls with his long fingers before placing a soft kiss on my forehead. My daughter is truly remarkable. I grinned. Of course I am. But let's not forget, I'm also fabulous. Now then, on to the next gift. One by one, nobles stepped forward, each presenting extravagant gifts. Silk blankets embroidered with golden threads, tiny jewel-encrusted shoes, even a ridiculously tiny crown. Oh yes, shower me with riches. And then, Marquis Everett strutted forward, his chest puffed out like a peacock in full display. His expression was polite, too polite. His beady eyes flickered over me, his lips twitching as if he'd swallowed something sour. What's this? Suspicion? Disdain? Do I sense him questioning my greatness? A servant stepped forward, revealing his gift, a silver bracelet with delicate engravings of the imperial crest. The hall went silent. I whipped my head to the side. Dramatically, a loud gasp echoed through the hall. Her Highness turned away, someone whispered in horror. The princess rejected the gift? Marquis Everett stiffened, his face going ghostly pale. I blinked. That's right. I rejected him not because of his gift. It's because I just don't like that man's face. He gets on my nerves. What can I do? I can't help. A nervous murmur spread among the nobles. Papa's crimson eyes flicked toward him and the temperature in the room dropped. Marquis Everett quickly bowed so low I thought he might snap in half. Why, Your Majesty? I think the princess didn't look at the gift properly. Papa's eyes flickered toward him, cold and sharp, like a blade pressing against his throat. Are you questioning my daughter's choice, Marquis? The Marquis' breath hitched. No, I dare not, Your Majesty. Papa didn't say anything. Just silence. Heavy. Pressing. Then, without even sparing the Marquis another glance, he ordered, present the next gift. The Marquis' face became as pale as a ghost. He swallowed thickly, bowed one last time and quickly shuffled away, but not before sending me a sharp glare. Oh. I squinted at him, my tiny fists clenching. You old man. I hate you with my full heart too. But before I could start plotting my 3-month-old vengeance, something unexpected happened. The next person stepped forward. And it was not some frail, beady-eyed noble who can be ignored. It was a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, and exuding a powerful aura, like my father yet entirely different. Where Papa was the embodiment of a cold-blooded emperor, this man radiated warmth. His presence was commanding but not in a way that froze the air around him. Instead it drew people in, steady and unwavering. His deep brown eyes, warm yet piercing, held a quiet intensity, reflecting both wisdom and something else, something unreadable. His flowing red hair cascaded in rich waves, catching the golden light that filtered through the grand palace hall. The fiery strands contrasted beautifully with his fair skin, giving him an almost otherworldly nobility. He bowed smoothly. Greetings, Your Majesty the Emperor and Your Highness the Princess. Papa, to my utter shock, nodded. Not his usual dismissive, half-interested nod, but one that carried something close to respect. It is good to see you, Grand Duke Regis. I blinked. Wait, what? Grand Duke Regis? Hold on. Don't tell me he is Regis Valerius Everhart, the father of the main lead. I stared at him, my brain short-circuiting. Oh, he looks so handsome. But not as handsome as my papa, of course. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Grand Duke Regis placed a hand over his chest and bowed gracefully. I congratulate the Emperor on the arrival of the beautiful little princess, Your Majesty. Papa glanced down at me, his gaze softening ever so slightly before he turned back to the Grand Duke. Thank you. And just like that, the entire court held its breath. Then Grand Duke Regis smiled, a warm, genuine smile, and glanced down toward his legs. Osric, you should greet the Emperor and the Imperial Princess too. Osric? You mean the maid lead? And that's when I saw him. A small boy stood stiffly at his father's side, his 6-year-old frame straight as a board. Osric Valerius Everhart. A miniature version of Grand Duke Regis. Same fiery hair. Same noble features. But his eyes were different. Unlike his father's, which held wisdom and experience, Osric's were wide with innocence. A boy who had just stepped into the Grand Imperial Hall, standing before the Emperor and the Imperial Princess for the first time. I squinted at him. So he is the male lead of this novel. Lavinia. My future fiancé. The boy who would banish me from my own palace? From my father? The boy who would one day abandon me for the heroine of this novel. Osric Valerius Everhart. So, he's finally appeared, huh? So he finally arrived. Osric Valerius Everhart. The man who would one day destroy me in every possible way in the future. The main lead of this novel. The future Grand Duke who would fall madly in love with a simple village girl and become obsessive over her, while I, his fiancée, would be cast aside like an old shoe. I stared at him. Hard. My tiny hands clenched into fists. Why am I getting angry? I don't know. But I am. I looked up at Papa, my ultimate source of justice, and with all the ferocity of an enraged imperial princess, I pointed my tiny hand toward Osric and declared, "Papa, that kid, throw him out." At least that's what I wanted to say. But of course all my dear mighty all-powerful father heard was, "Ababa, gag go." Ha. I wish I could speak. And then came the ultimate betrayal. Theon, my papa's dearest trusted assistant, his loyal right hand and now my greatest enemy, leaned toward me with that big shining smile and cooed, "Oh, looks like our little princess likes the young lord of Everheart." What? Excuse me. Are you nuts, Theon? I let out a frustrated wail, wiggling furiously in Papa's arms. No, you fool. I hate him. I hate him with every tiny cell in my baby body. But the court? The nobles? The knights? They all gasped in delight. The princess is reaching for him. She truly likes the young lord. She's even wriggling in excitement. Oh, how precious. A most fated meeting, truly. Ah, I can't with my people. Osric, the cause of my rage, just stood there blinking at me behind Grand Duke Regis, his big sparkly eyes shining with confusion. What? You idiot. I don't like you, okay? I hate you with all my tiny heart. Osric had no idea that I had just declared war. Meanwhile, I thrashed harder, desperate for someone, anyone, to understand my fury. But Papa tightened his hold around me, keeping me in place like a tiny, frustrated prisoner. I turned back to him, desperate. "Papa, throw him out. Throw him out, Papa." But all that came out was, a goo. Baba. Goo goo. And then, the final blow. Grand Duke Regis turned to Papa, smiling like he had just witnessed a divine sign from the heavens. "Looks like the princess really likes my son, Your Majesty. How about we make them playmates?" What? No, I wailed in outrage. "I don't want this. I refuse. Papa, do something." I looked up at him, my last hope. Papa's expression had darkened. He definitely didn't like the idea. His crimson eyes narrowed as he turned to Grand Duke Regis and said, "My daughter is just 3 months old, Grand Duke Regis. How could you say she has an interest in some boy she merely didn't even meet?" "Oh, yes, Papa. Drag him. Defend my honor." Osric flinched and hid behind the Grand Duke, peeking at me like I had just bitten him. "What, you idiot? You scared now?" But Grand Duke Regis only chuckled, completely unfazed and definitely not scared of my bloodthirsty father. "You're right, Your Majesty, we may have misunderstood the princess's intentions," he said smoothly. "But still, I would like to suggest that my son and the princess be playmates." "Nope. I don't want it. With all due respect, I reject your offer, sir." The hall went silent. Papa looked at me, then at Osric, then back at Grand Duke Regis. After a long pause, he finally said, "We will decide that later, Grand Duke." Grand Duke Regis smiled knowingly. "Of course, Your Majesty." I sighed in relief. Finally, this disastrous meeting was over. Now Papa and I could return to more important matters, like napping. But of course, fate was cruel. Clap. Grand Duke Regis clapped his hands. Immediately, a line of servants stepped forward, carrying a long rectangular chest adorned with golden engravings and imperial sigils. The court fell into hushed whispers. Even the nobles, who had been watching with smug amusement, suddenly straightened in their place. Even Papa's expression stiffened, his sharp golden eyes fixating on the chest with an unreadable look. "Oh. Now I shall present my gift, Your Majesty," Grand Duke Regis announced, his voice carrying through the hall. "A gift for the imperial princess. Something truly one of a kind." Theon stepped forward, his brow furrowed in suspicion. "If it's another pile of jewels, I assure you Her Highness already has." Regis simply smiled. "Oh no." That smile meant trouble. "I assure you, Your Majesty," he said smoothly, looking at Papa. "This is something rare." Papa's eye twitched. A very bad sign. He exhaled sharply. "Fine. Open it." Theon hesitated, but with a final glance at Papa, he reached forward and unlatched the chest. Creak. The lid lifted, revealing an enormous egg. Not just any egg. A shimmering, opalescent egg pulsing faintly as if it were alive. The court gasped. What in the heavens? A dragon's egg? No, that can't be. It still looks warm. I squinted at it. What the heck was this? Why was someone giving me an egg? Did they want me to boil it? Fry it? Make an omelet? I mean, that's what we use eggs for, right? Papa's brow furrowed in confusion. His voice came out slow and measured. Regis. Explain. Now. Grand Duke Regis smiled wider. It's not a dragon, Your Majesty. It's something far rarer. He turned his gaze toward me, still nestled in Papa's arms. A celestial beast. Said to bond with only one soul in its lifetime. I blinked. Gasp filled over the court again. What a celestial beast. Did I hear that right? That's really rare. I stared at the egg. Then back at the Grand Duke. Then at the egg again. So, let me get this straight. Not only was I forced to meet the male lead today, the same brat who would one day ruin my life, but now I was being handed some mystical beast egg like I was in a legendary prophecy. Nope. Too much, sir. Return to sender. I let out an outraged wail, thrashing in Papa's arms. But instead of understanding my frustration, the nobles looked delighted. Oh, look at her. She's reaching for it. She already loves her gift. Such a blessed child. Why do I feel my people always misunderstand me? Papa's eye twitched harder. My daughter is 3 months old, Grand Duke Regis, he said slowly, clearly trying not to explode. And I am afraid that this egg might also carry something dangerous. Regis chuckled. Oh, don't worry, Your Majesty. I can assure you, the creature inside is not dangerous. A heavy silence fell over the court. Papa's expression was unreadable, but I could see the gears turning in his head. After very long minutes, Papa finally said, Theon. Theon bowed immediately. Yes, Your Majesty? Keep the egg in a secure place. Theon nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. Grand Duke Regis bowed deeply, his smile way too pleased for my liking. Thank you for accepting my gift, Your Majesty. I scowled at the egg as Theon carefully took it away. This wasn't over. That thing better not hatch any time soon. Then Papa rose from his throne and with a regal nod he addressed the gathered court. Let us not delay any further. Enjoy the ceremony, he declared, his deep voice echoing through the grand hall. The nobles bowed, murmuring their agreements, before the air filled with renewed chatter, music and the clinking of crystal glasses. Papa turned, stepping down from the dais, and Theon followed closely behind with Nanny and Marilla. Finally it's over. I can sleep now. Just as I was about to rest my head against Papa's shoulder and forget this whole ridiculous big ceremony, my gaze met his. Osric Valerius Everhart. The boy who would one day ruin me. The boy who would throw me aside like an unwanted doll. The boy who was blushing. His eyes widened just slightly. A faint pink dusted his pale cheeks, and his lips parted as if he wanted to speak, but no words came out. What was that? What was that reaction? I narrowed my eyes. This kid, is he blushing? Is he seriously blushing right now? What nonsense is this? Meanwhile, I was boiling. Annoyed, irritated, completely exasperated. A storm raged inside me, fierce and relentless, the sheer injustice of my situation making my tiny body tremble. Osric had no idea, that I had already declared war upon him. That from this moment forth he was my sworn enemy. And yet, that idiot was peeking at me from behind his father's cloak like some shy, innocent creature in the whole world. Like he wasn't going to betray me in the future. I glared at him. I glared at Osric. I glared at everything. Whatever. It's not like I was going to meet him again anytime soon. But of course, how could I forget? Fate is the biggest betrayer in every person's life. So how could fate possibly spare me? Now I laid on the ridiculously soft, oversized bed that I had so gotten used to. My tiny arms were sprawled out, my tiny legs unmoving. What day? First, Papa introduced me like Simba to my people. Then Grand Duke Regis had to show up with his weird, ominous egg. And then, that idiot Osric. I wiggled dramatically, flipping onto my stomach, my tiny hands and legs kicking the air in frustration. And then I paused. My whole body went stiff. A sudden chill ran down my tiny baby spine. I had just remembered. That idiot's shy red face. Peeking at me from behind his father's cloak. Like some innocent little deer. Just recalling his blushing face sent goosebumps down my arms. My fingers curled into fists. Why was he blushing? What was he so shy about? I'm the one who should be horrified. Ewa. Gaga. I babbled angrily, which, if translated properly, meant, I swear if I could punch him right now I would. And then, the door swings open. I lifted my head just a bit. Away. Translation, Papa is back. And as expected, there stood my father, Emperor Cassius. Half naked. I give up. This man, as usual, looked completely unbothered by the fact that he was barely wearing anything in front of his 3-month-old daughter. His long, black robe was technically on, but it was hanging so loosely off his shoulders that he might as well have just left it in the bathroom. I stared at him blankly. He stared back. Then he walked over and flopped onto the bed beside me. A massive, warm hand reached out and touched my chubby little face. His palm was huge compared to mine. My baby instincts immediately grabbed onto his finger, my tiny hands barely able to wrap around it. Are you tired? He asked, his deep voice softer than usual. I giggled, wiggling my legs excitedly. Yes, but it was fun, except for Osric. Of course, all that came out of my mouth was more giggling. Papa smirked slightly, his golden eyes gleaming in amusement. Then he leaned down and kissed my forehead. I giggled more. And then he laid down fully. Right beside me. His arm draped over me, protectively pulling me close. Within minutes I felt his breathing slow. Cassius Devereux, the Emperor of the Illyrian Empire, the most feared man in the Empire, was falling asleep. I blinked. I blinked again. And then I was wiggling a little closer. His body was warm like a living furnace. His heartbeat was steady and calm. With a tiny yawn I curled up against him. My chubby little hands clung onto his robe. Outside the Empire moved on. The night was long and tomorrow would be filled with more ridiculousness, more schemes and, unfortunately, more Osric. But for now, for this one moment. Papa and I slept peacefully, hugging each other. Morning arrived far too soon, but at least I woke up in the most comfortable spot in the entire Empire, Papa's lap. I was sitting there, all warm and cozy, my tiny body secured in his firm yet gentle grasp. One of his arms was wrapped around me to make sure I didn't tumble over, while the other casually held a bunch of papers. I was content, especially since I was sucking on my golden pacifier, the most satisfying, luxurious, perfect pacifier in existence. A gift. An expensive gift. And I adored it. I kicked my tiny legs lazily, fully enjoying the moment. Living my luxurious, lazy, beautiful baby princess life. Across from us, Theon stood stiffly, reading from a very boring-looking scroll. Due to less rainfall this year, the western regions have reported a significant decline in harvest. The projected food supply for the next quarter. I tuned out the rest. Blah blah blah. Crops dying. Food shortage. Probably another noble being an idiot somewhere. Not my problem. Whatever it was, Papa would definitely find the solution. Then my eyes drifted toward the document in Papa's hand. The one with words. Words. My tiny baby brain lit up with curiosity. Can I read it? Sure, I was only 3 months old, but I wasn't just any 3-month-old. With determination I squinted at the page. And then, my tiny baby eyes immediately rolled back into my skull. What the hell? It was just a chaotic mess of unfamiliar symbols and elegant scribbles. The letters swirled and danced like a bunch of drunken nobles at a festival. I tried again. Nope. Still just an incomprehensible disaster. The frustration was real. I had regressed from an intelligent adult to a helpless baby who couldn't even read a stupid government report. I glared at the paper. The paper naturally glared back, mocking me with its superior literacy skills. I groaned, aggressively sucking on my pacifier as if that would somehow make me feel better. Papa, still holding me securely, tilted his head slightly. Something wrong, little one? His deep voice rumbled through his chest. I looked up at him, my expression one of pure betrayal. "Oh, Keith," I huffed. Translation, your language is stupid. Papa blinked. Clearly he did not understand my deep suffering. Theon, ever the composed one, cleared his throat. It looks like the princess is bored, your majesty, Theon suggested, his tone carefully neutral. That's right, Theon. I am bored. After trying to read those weird scribbled words, my brain is fried. Papa hummed, gazing down at me as if contemplating something. Then his lips curved slightly. Then let's walk around the garden. Without another word, Papa stood up effortlessly, lifting me securely in his arms. And just like that, I, the most powerful and adorable princess in the empire, was off to inspect my royal garden. But of course life wouldn't let me live in peace for even a day. As we walked out, Nanny and Mariella, who had been waiting outside, bowed and followed us toward the royal garden. I was casually sucking my pacifier, lying lazily in Papa's arms, my tiny legs kicking in satisfaction. Yes, this is the life. But then, Papa paused. What happened? I blinked up at him only to realize he wasn't just pausing, he was glaring. That was not his usual scary, emotionless expression. This was the "I'm 2 seconds away from murdering someone" face. Curious, I turned my head to follow his glare and then, what? What is he doing here? Standing in front of us, smiling warmly and gently, was Grand Duke Regis. He was practically glowing with brightness, a stark contrast to the stormy aura radiating from Papa. "Greetings, Your Majesty the Emperor and Your Highness the Princess," Grand Duke Regis said, his voice smooth and confident. Papa sighed deeply. And then, instead of replying, he simply walked forward, completely ignoring Regis. "I wasn't informed of any arrival, Grand Duke Regis." The Grand Duke followed unfazed. "I apologize, Your Majesty, but I had to come here to report an urgent matter." Papa didn't even glance at him. "State your business before I throw you into the dungeon," he said flatly. Well, Papa sure is dangerous, threatening right away after seeing someone. He's a total sadist. Now I wonder what Grand Duke Regis would do. The Grand Duke glanced at me and sighed. "Don't you think you should be more gentle in front of your daughter, Your Majesty?" What? Why is he so casual with my Papa? Did he forget who he is speaking to? It's the Emperor Cassius Drew. The bloodthirsty Emperor. The tyrant. Does he want to die or what? I wonder what Papa will do now. Take his sword and kill him right away. Or drag him to the dungeon. But Papa simply turned to him, glaring. "Thean throw." All right, I'll get to the business," Grand Duke Regis surrendered, raising his hands in defeat. Papa resumed walking. "Speak." The Grand Duke cleared his throat. "The western provinces are demanding additional grain reserves due to the drought. They're also pushing for lower taxes, claiming their losses this year are worse than predicted. The merchant guilds, of course, are resisting any tax reduction because they're merchants and their souls are made of greed." Papa exhaled through his nose, like a man whose patience was running on fumes. "And what do you suggest?" Regis smirked. "Well, obviously, Your Majesty, you should terrorize them into submission." Papa shot him a look. Regis grinned. But in a polite and imperial way, of course." Papa rolled his eyes, adjusting his grip on me as if Grand Duke Regis's mere existence was making him physically tired. I, on the other hand, had no interest in their politics. But I was shocked to see there was someone who spoke to my Papa casually, without any fear. I was far too busy staring at Grand Duke Regis, suspiciously sucking on my pacifier like some kind of tiny mafia boss assessing a rival. And then, Regis's eyes met mine. For a second the Grand Duke just stared. Then his lips curled into a slow smile. "Can I hold her?" Silence. Absolute chilling silence. Even Thean took a half step back, eyes widening. Papa's expression didn't change. Instead, with terrifying calmness, he reached for the sword at his waist. With a smooth, practiced motion, he unsheathed it just enough for the gleaming silver blade to catch the morning light. "Sure," Papa said casually. "Unless you're ready to die." Regis blinked and went silent for a second. Then he smiled warmly. "It's good to see you being a gentle parent, Cassius." Huh. What did I just hear? Cassius? Not Your Majesty? I looked at Papa. Then at Regis. Then at Papa again. Then back at Regis. Totally confused.